Hello, one and all. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is the 8th of November, 2023, and it is a Wednesday, and that means it is a manga day, even though none of the manga we talk about tend to come out on Wednesdays, basically. But it's still a manga day. Aren't we all lucky for that?
Yeah, and remember, the 8th of November.
That's what it is.
That's the catchphrase, yeah.
That's mine, yeah. And that famous media franchise, F for Vendetta.
Mm-hmm. It's actually 8 for Vendetta. And then its sequel series where the 8 turns on its side and it's an infinity symbol. Infinity for Vendetta. That's where it goes to space.
Imagine if that line where it's like, behind this mask is an idea and ideas are bulletproof. Instead, he was like, behind this mask is an 8. And an 8 when you turn it on its side is infinite.
You've shot me multiple times, so I will fall over to the side. But little do you know, an 8 on its side is infinite. Do you think, does that movie hold up?
I don't know. It has been, oh my God, it's been closer to 20 years than 10 since I've seen that movie. So.
I don't think I've seen the full thing since it was in theaters. But as I think back on it, I'm like, I think I liked it less after originally seeing it. Like when I saw it in theaters, it's like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And then later on, I liked it less. And now I wonder if it holds up at all. Like, I'm wondering if I'd like it a little bit more or not.
I don't know. I do definitely think that for the peer group that I hung out with, it was very much I'm 13 and this is deep kind of appreciation.
Yes, exactly.
So, it's hard to tell with that kind of thing. Some of the stuff from that period in our lives, it turns out, was actually just very well made. And some of it was just because it appealed to the person in all of us who also wanted to have superpowers that involved throwing knives, which was all of us. So
that's who we all envied nowadays. But we can't all be. Trying to think of like a famous knife throwing.
Knifey Johnson.
Knifey Johnson. We can't all be Knifey Johnson.
Not to be confused with Hambone Jackson.
No, two different. Yeah. Knifey Johnson and Hambone Jackson are actually mortal enemies. They cannot stand each other.
They can't be in the same room.
You'll never catch me with those knives, gods damn it!
Does Knifey Johnson also do like an unrelated performance art?
Yeah, he
does a one man jug band or something.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the video where it's a guy says, "Hit it, Joe," and then it like cuts to this guy playing like a piano with like 1,000 instruments inside
yes.
it? Yeah, that's what he plays. He plays the "Hit It, Joe" piano.
When you said he plays the Hit It Joe, I wasn't sure for a second if you were talking about he plays that instrument in that video, or he's the guy who tells Joe to hit it.
Yeah, hit it, Joe. While Joe's doing the music, he just throws knives at them. Like, you can't resist the rhythm. I'm going wild here.
Oh man, I don't know if there is anything in the manga this week that matches this kind of weird topic, but I kind of hope that there is, because I can't remember much of what happens this week. It's weird. It's like there is a veil over my manga memory. I read some other manga this week, thank goodness, beyond the stuff we're going to talk about today.
It's the curse of November is affecting you at this point. That's what's happening.
I think it is. It turns out that the curse of October is actually a good thing. Yeah, between a bunch of stuff being off and some other stuff, there's an odd batch we've got today, because we got to begin with no My Hero this week. We're going to be starting off with Undead Unluck And it's chapter number 182, Sunspot.
Yeah, everyone's favorite X-Men character.
Yeah, because he just like constantly builds energy. If you right, that's how he works, right? I don't know.
Oh,
If I've Sunspot. I don't know if I've ever actually read a Sunspot comic.
I was saying there for a moment. I was like, I mean, he is considered to be powerful. Oh, the Marvel Snap card. I get it. I had to sadly announce that you know what? This is for a different time. We'll talk about it later. Instead, we're going to talk about Undead Unluck number 182, Sunspot. As you said last time, Fuko used Move to enter into this, sort of break between worlds, and she found the evil round table where all the master rules are. So she starts by basically being like, all right, I've gotten this opportunity because of Andy. I'm not going to let this pass by me. I'm going to find out here and now a hint leading to Andy's whereabouts. And she pulls out her guns and she just lets it rip. She just starts firing bullets at every one of the members of the round table. And all the bullets...
of them fall dead. They've been shot in the head. And then meteors fall from the sky and crush them all.
Yeah.
And, end of series. We did it. We defeated the bad guys.
Fuko did it. All of them are dead. And it's done. No, all of the bullets instead stop right in front of their faces. Or, as Fuko notes, they stopped. No. But maybe something else is happening instead. So, someone just says, this is a first. No negator has ever set foot here. Welcome to the Master Room. And we get a more close-up sort of look at these characters we were introduced to last week and their very wide variety of designs. Which is very amusing to me because the most boring member of the group is the one who is doing the actual talking in this chapter, like the person who has
the most boring one is number 1, which I guess.
Yeah, he has a very standard design. Like everyone else is like, hey, I'm a fucking soldier whose face has been like ripped apart, or I'm like a quirky old gentleman, or I'm a nun, and then it's just like I'm a dude with hair. So I believe he's the one talking, as he's the one who handles the majority of the talking in this chapter. But he's just like, oh, okay, Move must have opened up this door for you. Move's pretty, spontaneous, so it's kind of an issue, but, that aside, everyone starts taking this opportunity to shit on Sick. They're like, hey, Sick, why did you suck? Everyone's like, we knew he'd suck. We all knew he'd lose. Someone shouts, you played around too much, your rule takes too long. And Fuko just thinks to herself, like, okay, I can't waste time here. Move could send me back at any moment, so I need this opportunity to gather intel. And in that moment, this character who I'll just refer to as number 1 because we don't know what their role is yet, and it's not even revealed throughout this chapter, they kind of like leap from their spot across the table and stand right in front of Fuko. And he has a very intense kind of look, and he's like, why did you attack us? And Fuko's like, here he is. He's like, no, this is a problem. After all, you are the final first seat, the final looper. We are in the home stretch of this big game, and picking a fight with us now, we would just obliterate you. It'd be super anticlimactic. I mean, we don't mind killing you and just replacing you with someone else who played ball, And Fuko just says, you all scoff at Sick and call him weak, but he was strong. Like, we probably would have lost if it weren't for help arriving. So it got me wondering, why has a group that's as strong as all of you not launched any attacks at us? Why have you all just sat here? And the only answer is because you 10 high-ranking rules can only attack us by the way of quests. You need to be a quest target for it to happen. And that's why I shot you. I stood to gain from it. Now I know our attacks won't connect with any of you because we basically need to be in a quest for that to happen at this point. And
they are prevented from crossing paths except in limited interactions.
Yeah. It's
the rules of engagement.
So, number 1 is just like, I see. Is that what your read is? Well, we could just be lazy, actually. And Fuko's like, that would be even better. Then my unluck would just killed all of you in this moment right now, and victory would be ours. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, but if you had all been lazy, that would have been great.
I want to just stress to people, But here is Fuko, cute hoodie girl, smiling serenely while she says, "Yeah, it would have been great if I had just shot all 10 of you in the head." Because like I know we all have like over this past calendar year have been loving like, oh yeah, cool, like protagonist Fuko is great and everything, but it's like also she's very frightening if you look at it in the right context.
Yes. Number one just goes like, hey guys, I like this girl. She's completely fucking crazy. She's not playing at all like her predecessor. This is awesome. I like you. I think I'll give you a reward. The number two person at the table, the woman who has like the DNA strands in her hair. Again, we can presume a couple guesses at what her identity is, but it's not revealed here, so we're just gonna call her number two. She interrupts and is like, why are you getting attached? She's just a vessel. Or what? Are you like into her? And number one just ignores her. It's just like, hey, go ahead and ask me any question you want. I'll tell you one thing about anything you want to know. There's a brief intersection here where the nun character is told that she reeks of blood and guts, and she gets very upset about it, and she turns to like the young child looking character and refers to them as Dear Lucky. So perhaps that character is Luck. That's maybe their rule. It might just be a nickname, so I don't want to 100% guess to that, but
it would be interesting if one of these people that they've got to deal with is their opposite in some way.
But number one's just like, oh, sorry, everyone here is kind of annoying. You can ask your one thing though now. And Fuko says, tell me the whereabouts of Andy, of Undead. And it does seem to kind of surprise number one a bit, and a couple of people at the tables comment on it. They're like, "Ah, oh, man, we didn't want to tell her this. We were just finally starting to weaken it, but you offered, so you have to honor the rules." Number one's like, "Okay, that's fine. Your earlier theory about everything is half right and half wrong. The fact that we can only act during quests isn't really like a fault of the system. It's because Undead is using his soul to hold us back." And Fuko's like, hold you back? What do you mean? How? Where? And he's like, have you ever seen a sunspot? This like dark visible area on the sun due to like the temperatures and everything like that? She's like, yeah, that's Undead. Right now, he is on the sun, and we get a shot of...
Now, you might think that there's a scientific explanation for this, but no.
No,
it is an immortal guy hanging out on the surface of the sun.
I assume in a blindingly painful situation, but he's very cool with it. He says, yep, right now he's on the sun. We see Andy there. We see him having just shot his little finger towards Earth, presumably as the way to get his clone there for a little bit. And number one continues. He says, this place is inside the sun, and thanks to his soul, we can't get out unless we are mandatorily teleported for a quest, basically. He's doing it specifically to keep us from matching with you guys. Like, didn't you wonder? Like, you passed on so many quests, and yet we never appeared, right? So we've stayed here for hundreds of millions of years, but it's only been in the past 200 years that we got an opening, which is why Sick, the weakest of all of us, is the one who managed to get out. But by doing his little act of sending that clone down to the Earth to help you guys out, he stretched himself a bit too thin. So now another one of us will be available to show up during the quests. You chatted with him for a little bit, didn't you? Did he ask you to save him? He made a clone to tell you, and Fuko's just like, nope. If him reaching out this time held any message at all, it could only be, leave things here to me while you kick ass. And as Fuko says that, UMA Move has created the opening. She can see the rest of her friends, and she starts just walking out of the master room. And we finish with number one just looking on, saying, okay, I hope so. We end the chapter with Fuko reuniting with the rest of Union and thinking that Andy has been buying his time this whole time, and he's enduring, all of this basically due to how much he believes in us. So it's all good, Andy. You're like, we're going to definitely do this. This time you afforded us this chance. We are going to make use of it. And I swear we will negate those 10 and make it up to you. And she ends the chapter by saying, heh, sick. Well then, bring it on.
Yeah. Sick. Wicked sick.
Wicked sick. Everyone's boss said, "Oh, wicked piss how sick this is." There's some cool stuff in this chapter. One thing I like is that like Six looks like he's just dead. There's so many cool panels where because he's been split in half, like one side will be like hanging up and then the other half is like slumped over. It's very like brutal to look at, but also very cool. I can't say anyone in this group stuck out a ton. Like, there's definitely some cool designs, and there are great theories to what all these characters could be. I've heard that like the guy in the soldier uniform could be War, and like, oh, maybe this character is like Faith or something like that. Like all these different concepts. The one girl looks like she has like a tower on her head, so maybe she's language or something like that, or communication. Something. I mean, who knows? Like, I'm just thinking the Tower of Babel. She could also be like hierarchy. Right. Who knows? There could be a lot of different things here. I'm very curious to see them. They have cool designs. No one's personality or anything stuck out to me yet, so I'll say that. But this is a cool confrontation. As I said, it's weird that like the least interesting design is the one that we got to see communicated with this time. But I also get it. He's also the one that you can make popular. I like little freaks, and not everyone does.
It does remind me of like when we were introduced to the Espada, like the table of the 10 of them and stuff. You didn't know their rankings in that shot. They all revealed them independently, but I do remember a thing. I was like, oh, I do hope that lazy guy is number one because he seems like really interesting and stuff. And it's like it's nice that that was just the case, and they didn't do anything afterwards to indicate it's like, oh no, actually, the actual number one seed is this guy, because that would have been stupid.
Yeah. Thankfully, the numbers we were introduced to them at was the final confirmation of everything.
Yeah, the only member of this table that we've really gotten to see beyond Sick is number one, because everyone else we get like one panel where they get to show some personality at best. A lot of them don't even talk.
Yeah, I was say that. I don't think the Knight character and the kid reading the book and the
guy wearing the pelt.
Yeah. The pelt guy, I think, is one of the two that interrupts about like, we thought what like Andy was like. I can't believe we had to reveal all this because we were so close to like getting through or whatever. I think he's one of the two.
Oh yeah, he does. Talk about it, and so does the War guy.
But yeah, like it's still, as you said, there's several who don't say anything.
Tiny little things. Yeah. But despite all that, it's like, okay, we get, number one having this full conversation with Fuko. And, whenever there's one of these evil council groups, my point is that there usually is actually some point where it's revealed that actually this person is actually the leader of the group, whether it be, Yami is actually the strongest Espada, asterisk, or it turns out that the real leader of the Akatsuki was actually Toby because he's not Toby the whole time, etc. And this time kind of thing is like, I kind of hope that there is just like a different leader of this table than this boring guy.
He might be cool once we find out his role. I've heard a lot of theories. He might be Death, and like maybe there's just like a cooler design for him at some point. I should also correct myself. The DNA lady is number 3. I said number 2 earlier. I was trying to look at the Roman numeral and it didn't seem that close. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird when you like specifically have a hierarchy of numbers. But yeah, it would be cool if they were like, actually, the Knight's the leader. The Knight with like the one glowing eye.
Why is he the leader? I don't know.
It's creepy.
He just likes that sitting over there.
Yeah. His favorite number's 8. Why would you gonna stop him? You gonna tell him no? Fuck you.
You can turn it on its side and it's infinite. You guys have like Roman numerals, so no.
You shut your whore mouth. Otherwise, I think this is really cool. This is like a cool introduction to like this group, and we get to see these designs. And I'm like, ooh, who's going to be the next member out of there? I'm just curious to know more about these characters. So in that way, really cool. The Andy thing feels like a rewrite, because I do recall early on Fuko had made some mention of like, oh, Andy's off actually searching for artifacts, and there was like a shot of like a person riding like a camel in the desert. So she just doesn't know, I guess is the answer. She's like, that's what I thought he was doing. Turns out he's sitting on the sun protecting us from getting killed by Master Rules.
Or maybe he's just occasionally looking around like, nope, no artifacts up here.
Yeah. This is a much
everything is still on fire.
This is a much cooler idea for what he's doing, so I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a cool chapter overall. We're gonna see. I talked to Nick briefly about this earlier, but this is sort of a weird week of manga, so this might be one of the best chapters as well.
Let's keep that ball rolling with Blue Box.
Mm-hmm.
It's chapter number 124. Great to hear. And immediately, like, we just kind of like move ahead a little bit from where we were last time, following Taiki's match with Haruto. Just like, oh yeah, it's spring now, and soon we're gonna have the qualifiers for nationals. But first, it's time for the high school sports festival. Look, any series that is set in high school and lasts long enough will eventually do a sports festival arc. It is inevitable. And we do get this just kind of like collage shot of like, all of the, main cast, like, wearing the colored headbands and competing in events. I do really like the shot in there of Chinatsu just tightening her headband in the back. It's cute. She's making a funny expression.
Did they do one for the previous year?
I don't even remember if
I'm like vaguely feeling like they did, but I can't remember it at all.
Yeah, I don't think it was particularly noteworthy if they did do it. So, all of the Class A teams in each year are part of the red team, and that of course includes like Taiki and Kyo and Ayame and Hina. And also Nishida, but they'll outweigh him.
Yeah, every team needs its dead weight.
Yeah. And so they're like, all right, we're gonna do this because ruling the sports festival means ruling the school, and more than anything, the grand prize is AMA Special Sports Festival limited time only delicious yakisoba bread. To eat it, we must win. And hey, that's a good way to get high school kids motivated for something. It's a special tasty treat. You only get it if you win. Let's go get that bread. Hell yeah. So they're all set for that. Hina and Ayame and Hina's friend are part of the cheerleading squad, which it kind of feels a little bit like, Hina, you're on the gymnast.
You're an athlete. You should be out here doing athlete things.
It's like, no, I just dance. It's nothing. It doesn't require any athletic ability.
Like gymnastics is one of the most demanding sports out there. What do you?
Incredibly. Requires incredible mastery of your own body's abilities.
She's like, yeah, I'm not doing sprinting though. Fuck that shit.
Yep. Ayame it's like, hey, let's take a photo together to remember this event. And so they all get in, and Kyo is like right next to Ayame when he makes a remark about it. And so Ayame says like, Hina, get closer. And she butts in so that he kind of has to back off from her. It's cute because it's like, Ayame's still flustered around him. But as a result of Hina having to jostle that way, Taiki has to like dart out of the way, and so he's making a weird expression when the photo gets taken. They're like, "That's perfect," and Taiki's like, "Can we retake that? I'm gonna post this. Don't post that,
please don't."
They run into Haruto as well, and he greets them, nicely because he now knows that Taiki is a senpai now. And they're like, oh, what event are you participating in? It's like, oh, just tug of war. But that's all? Yeah, I'm not into the whole working together like goofballs thing just because it's a special event. And then he happens to spot Hina, and he's like, oh, pardon my rudeness. Oh, you're that upperclassman on the rhythmic gymnastics team. And they're like, oh, wow. Yeah, and Taiki's like, it's amazing that you knew that. You didn't even know that I'm a second year, and we're in the same club. And Haruto pauses a second, and then I will give him points for honesty.
He says the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, he does. He just says like, yeah, it's just, I mean, he could have said it worse, but he says it's because those skin tight outfits she wears caught my attention. No one else is willing to say that, but
It is very much like this is the furthest we're gonna let a character be like a creep in this series, which I'm very thankful for. There hasn't been like some like deeply
Oh
unnerving,
yeah,
like even Matsuoka, who was meant to be like an asshole with like bad qualities, was never just like a leering perv or anything like that. It's
no,
just
he
him
was
being
just like,
like,
she's Chinatsu is cool and cute, so I want to go out with her.
yeah, he's just like, you caught my attention because of the outfits you wear, and I don't know. It's just very silly. Aruto. I like that he paused and was like,
He thought
"Yeah,
about
I'm
it.
gonna say this. This is the right call."
So immediately Taiki and Kyo are like, we're sorry about him. We're sorry.
I will say this about Haruto. He's an honest boy.
He is.
I'm like, this guy has not lied really in any of his appearances. He just says what's on his mind at every point in time. That's a problem. But I do appreciate that he's honest.
He's also really riding the line. Yeah, he could have said what he said worse.
Mm-hmm.
We see that Chinatsu is leading the blue team because she's on a different team from our red team folks, to a big lead in the beanbag toss because, she's the basketball ace.
Bless you.
And thank you. And of course, the beanbag toss thing is basically just basketball, but with beanbags. So they take a huge lead with that. And Akari is on the red team representing this, and they're like, "Oh man, we don't have very good arm strength in this," but Taiki calls out to his kohai. It's like, "Hey, you can do it," and she goes, "Oh."
It's worth noting. I don't know if he is specifically calling out to her or just saying it to like the team in general, and she hears it and is like, "Oh, because he's cheering for us, I'm going to do it." That's how I read it more than he was specifically calling to her, but that I might just have been reading it wrong.
I mean, there's no real indication, I think, from the layout of the panels to really make that call.
Mm-hmm.
But Akari definitely takes it that way because she's
Yes.
like, "Oh, let's do it, let's do it."
Yeah, she's like, "Let's go, red team."
Yeah. It's time for the three-legged race. Taiki is participating in it, and on another team is Matsuoka. And he's like, "I'm not gonna come up short against you this time." And so they're like, "All right, well, let's do it." And immediately Matsuoka falls behind because his partner is not pulling his weight, and he says, and I quote, "Why are you skipping?" Which is,
yeah, because
yes, that is not how you do a three-legged race. Let's just hop. Let's just hop.
Yeah, because the other guy's going like 1, 2, 1, 2, and it's like, no, just run.
Just run. And Ayame, even though she's on the red team, calls out and cheers for Matsuoka. And if someone else in the red team is like, "Matsuoka's on the opposing team," and she's like, "Yeah, but he's so far behind. I feel bad. I want to cheer for him." And so some of the other people like look at each other like, "Do you have a thing for it?" And she's not. What? No. What? No. And they're like, "But you gave him special chocolates on Valentine's Day, different from everyone else's. So, maybe." And, the Batman team's like been talking about it. And this is so cute. Ayame's like, "The Batman team's been talking about it." She immediately looks right at Kyo. And then she's like, "Oh, fucking people and their rumors spreading." So, very self-conscious. Three-legged race nearly gets ended, and Taiki is like kind of looking into the crowd and gets distracted from people calling him Inamada Senpai. This dork. Chinatsu is watching things, and she's like, "Oh yeah, there's my man." And Haru just right up to her, "Yeah, your boyfriend sure is popular." And she's like, "Why would you say he's my boyfriend?" And he says, "Look, I didn't hear it from Karen or anything, but I can tell. I can tell just by looking at you." And just like, "Well, we're trying to keep it a secret." And Haru's like, "Why? Just tell people you're going out." And Chinatsu just says, "It's complicated." Because, of course, Haru doesn't know that they're living together. Yeah. So.
Which is also a fact most people don't know. There's just a handful.
Most people don't.
And I'm trying to even think who does actually know that. I think Kyo knows, but he also knows they're dating.
Yeah. I think
I'm just
Karen I think Karen might know.
Karen does, but
Yeah.
she also knows they're dating. Like, I'm trying to think of who
Yes,
knows that they live together that don't know that they're dating.
their families.
Yeah. Hina?
Uh,
Is Hina the only one, really?
yeah, she found out about it.
Yeah.
And she also knows that they're going out.
Yeah, but now she knows. So I don't think there's anyone who specifically knows that they're dating, that, or anyone that knows that they live together that don't know that she's dating. I don't know why my brain
And
went through this
Haru,
process.
and so few people know that they're dating that Haru's the only one who knows they're dating and doesn't know they're living together. So,
Yes.
unfortunately, Haru is cool. So Chinatsu just says it's complicated, and he's like, "All right, sure," and just accepts that. But he brings up the fact of, "Hey, but are you okay with like no one knowing you're dating?" And Chinatsu's confused by this at first, but he says like, "I mean, look, Taiki's a good guy. He's been making his way up in the Batman Club lately. He's adored by his juniors. So if you hide the fact that you two are going out, girls are going to start to think that he's available, and they're going to come for him." And I do like Chinatsu's expression because it is a cross between suspicious, protective, and confused.
Yeah.
Because she's that is a great eyebrow quirk. That's one of the facial expressions I pride myself on, and she's
Yeah,
giving a good one.
she has a very great expression in that moment.
So now Chinatsu's like, "Did you just come to tell me this to mess with me?" And Haru's like, "Yes, I did."
Yes. Absolutely, 100%.
But he also flat out, or rather, Chinatsu goes on to say, like, "Look, I do have mixed feelings about it, but I think it's good that, like, he's looked up to." And Haru's like, "Okay, but, if you needed me for anything, I'm here to listen to you. Also, if I'm going to beat him and feel good about it, I'd rather do it when he's at the top of his game." So he goes off, and Chinatsu's like, "Aw, Haru likes Taiki too."
Yeah. It's nice for her because she gets to see that all these people like her boyfriend. She's just like, everyone loves him. This is so great.
Mm-hmm. Taiki's team wins the race. Hooray. And then Chinatsu looks around and is like, "Yeah, it's great to hear." As his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Shortly afterward, so Akari and a friend of Akari's, like I've got way less of a chance of knowing this girl's name than I do Hina's friend. I'm pretty sure her name's never been mentioned.
Yeah, I think Hina's friend is Nina. This character, God
and then there's their friend Pinta, and
yeah, and then their third friend is Santa Maria. Yep.
Yeah. And they like to go off together and commit genocide. And
yeah, they do bad things when they're together. They're a group you keep separated.
So Akari and friend come up to Taiki, and Akari's friend is like, "Oh yeah, she was cheering really hard for you during the 3-legged race. You did a really good job." And the two of them kind of chat for a little bit. And then Akari's friend looks over, sees like a bunch of like different couples just hanging out with each other, and she's like, "Hey, I got a question for you, Inamata Senpai. Are you seeing anyone right now?" Boom, boom, end the chapter.
This is actually kind of an interesting way to end the chapter because I am rather curious to find out. Like, I feel like there's going to be some level of like a misdirect. Someone could just drag him out of the conversation or something. But I am curious to see like Taiki have to process how to respond to that because he's going to be like, no, yes. No, but yes. But no.
I mean, obviously we've seen like Akari hang out with her friends, and they've said like, "Oh, you've got a crush on Inamata Senpai," and like everyone seems to think it's obvious and everything. So the clear implication of this moment is supposed to be like, "Oh yeah, Akari's friend is trying to be a good wing woman." Just like, "Hey, you going out with someone?" Yeah. It would be kind of funny if she was like, "Yeah, I'm into you. Can we just the like one character in this entire series who is a girl, and it's just like, I'd like to go out with you. What do you think?"
Yeah. I think it's gonna be fun. This is a cute chapter again. Probably one of the better ones this week. It might end up being chapter of the week this week. I have no idea at this point, but it's definitely a contender. But Nick,
But
I would
Quinn!
like to do some 4D science.
Yeah. So something kind of unexpected happened this week, which was that a new Doctor Stone limited series started up, and when you brought up to me, you asked like, "Hey, should we talk about this?" I believe your clarification was, at first I was going to say no, but then I got to the end of the chapter.
Yeah,
And-
I have mixed thoughts on this chapter, as we'll kind of get to as we get into it. But I was not vibing particularly much with this chapter as I was going along. It was kind of like Doctor Stone, the third epilogue.
yeah,
This time, Ace Senku is not canon.
And I was like, I'm not really feeling this. But the end was like something where I was like, oh, I'm intrigued. Like, this is like a development that is interesting. So I was like, okay, I'll probably keep reading it. And it falls into this nebulous space of like, do we talk about it? Do we not? If it hadn't had that ending, I think I would have just skipped it. But with that ending, I was like, all right, might as well. It's also not going to be regular. Like, this is a short
Right.
series, but I don't know its exact schedule yet. I don't know if it's like every other week or monthly. I have no idea, but that's why I place it up here with where the other like kind of random series go.
right.
Or regular.
And this chapter, and presumably this mini-series, is going to be all about the idea that was thrown out in the finale of Dr. Stone of mastering time travel. Because, of course, we can't save all the people who were lost during the Great Petrification event if we don't go back in time and save those people who weren't petrified, the astronauts, including Byakuya, Senku's father. And the chapter begins with a flashback to Senku in his youth. He's 10 years old, so at this point he has met up with Taiju. Taiju helps him out with experiments and stuff. And Senku has just set up this antenna that they've brought up like on like Tokyo Tower or something like that. Maybe not Tokyo Tower. I don't know what Tokyo Tower actually looks like. It's a big radio tower.
Nick's like, they set it up on a big thing.
A big thing. And Senku just says like, all right, so I'm going to, if I ever master time travel, future me is going to aim right here and shoot a message back via the time machine. That way I'll know if it's possible literally right now, if I'll ever do it. And they set up, and he and Taiju wait, and the moment of when I would have sent the message passes and nothing is received. So, New Year rings in, Senku, goes home, and he and Byakuya sit down, have a meal, and Byakuya's having a big laugh about it. It's like, oh, you're such a, you're that's either the idea of a genius or a little snot-nosed dreamer. So he's having, good fun with this kid. But he tells him, like, not to be down, even though Senku's saying, like, yeah, I guess the time machine's impossible. This is something that even Einstein couldn't do. But Byakuya says, science is a way of marching forward. Do you think folks in the old days would have ever believed that humanity would one day reach the moon? The future's a closed box mystery to all. That's why humanity steps up to the challenge. That's what makes it all such a blast. And on that note, we get, like a very brief recap of the series of like everyone was petrified by this massive cataclysmic event. Everyone awakened. Senku led the way for everyone being brought back. And science progressing and bringing human civilization back until eventually one of the Y-men was hanging out with them in a little capsule that they drew a funny face on. Yes. We cut over to Zeno, who says, "All right, look. So we have this. As long as we have a Y-man that is capable of producing the Petra beam, we could technically create a time machine." And so a bunch of the world leaders are like, oh, this comes off as a half-baked fantasy. And the Y-Man says, why is that conclusion drawn? Are you perhaps lacking in brain cells?
They should have been able to give like the robot like a sassy face for that panel. Like it has like a little like eyebrow crack. Like, are you perhaps lacking in brain cells?
But Zeno says that the problem isn't the technology, it is the lack of energy. He says a single instance of time travel would require 1.21 exawatts, which is more energy than the entire human race has ever produced ever.
I was gonna say, Nick, that sounds like a lot of energy.
It's a lot. He clarifies that. Meanwhile, they are like creating stuff still. They make robots.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Also, they've made AI that seems dangerous for multiple reasons. The robots just go around to people. Would you like to buy this ape?
Oh no! We've invented NFTs.
Ignore the shape of the thumbs.
Why are they still ugly? Oh, my eyes are burning out.
So this is the big problem that they're facing, is that they, in order to create all of this stuff, in order to get all this stuff, they need, like, we need to like go to the freaking moon's surface, and and there would be all this helium we could get there. A single rocket's worth of helium-3 would provide enough energy to power the entire United States for a year. So they're like, all right, we need to go to the moon, get helium. We need to get resources from other places. Like, yeah, but the budget. Oh no, we awakened all the people who are the bureaucrats. We can't just do whatever we want anymore. So, and they're like, who would hold the rights to all this? What nation would have all this? And Xeno's getting really pissed off about it, of course, and Gen's trying to calm him down. Eventually, they just like walk out of the meeting, and Xeno says, like, look, on paper, humanity's at the point where we built ourselves back up from the new world. We have the roadmap for scientifically sound time travel already, and yet we're at this hurdle. And we see the big old machine that Senku was working on at the end of the series, the thing that should theoretically help them with time travel.
We're going to use it to save Ace from One Piece.
That's priority uno, buddy. They're like, all right, well, we finished the time machine. Senku's like, well, these are the blueprints. We have not actually made the time machine. But there is also something else going on, and there's suddenly a bunch of people like burst in through the doors, and they've got, those like pop things. What are they called?
Party poppers. Yeah.
Party poppers. Yes. And like, oh yeah, it's a victory party for all of our hard work and the accomplishments we've made and stuff like that. And Senku's like, yeah, but I haven't actually made the time machine yet. It's like, oh, no. And they convince him that she's like, okay, come on, we should have a little party. Ryu Sweet says like, oh, it's good for keeping morale up. That's how you keep people energized. And Y-Man is like, humanity functions in this manner. But, I mean, you thought that freezing people in stone forever was going to be a way of helping them. So just yes,
yeah, just go along with us, please.
And Chrome has to think about it. He's like, we've hit a big milestone, and we're having this rap party. And then he remembers that he's promised something to Ruri, or he suggests something to Ruri. And he's like, oh, hey, you remember my promise about us finishing up this project? You want to get married? And Ruri gets very embarrassed, and she blushes, and she's like, okay. And they're married. They're married now. Bing!
It took a bit. It took a couple times before we finally have like a post-series Dr. Stone moment where Chrome's like, oh, right, we should get married. Like a thing I promised you in the series itself.
And yeah, it's like kind of like included in the party. And I do like the detail that like people are like dressed up for it. Even if for some characters, that just means like for the women, they're just wearing like white versions of what they normally wear. Kawaku's wearing a white version of her normal dress. What's her name? Chelsea? Was it?
Chelsea is the
Dr.
little
Chelsea.
explorer lady.
Right. So she says, hey, Senku, Chrome's married. Do you have any romantic interests, huh? I bet it's got to be either Kohaku or Luna, but which one, huh? And Senku's like, I don't get to just pick one of them like an object. It's a beast. Good for you, Senku.
Yeah.
So, and I do like that a bunch of people are like, did you just say sensible when it got about romance? It's like, God, what are you talking about? And so Kohaku's like, what? So you're saying that if I wanted to, then we could get betrothed? Yeah, I'm not with the idea if you are. And Senku's like, I don't have time for that.
It's not my favorite moment. I do stand corrected. Black Endo made a point earlier that Senku could still be ace and still get married to somebody. I think it was more that just like Senku in love was always something he like either deflected or used to get something he wanted.
Right.
Which he still, I guess, technically does here. This is a throwaway line. This isn't him saying, like, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Kaku. But it is one of these things that annoys me that I feel like there is just a push towards, like, everyone should be in a couple. Senku, be in a couple.
It's that good old heteronormativity of mainstream media creeping its way onto everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Luna is also present for all this, and she's like, she still can't work up the nerve. It's like people are talking about romantic interest for Senku. It's like, just tell him you like him. And also, I mean, like this scene between Kohaku and Senku, it could be read as just banter between friends.
It should be. I think I was
Kohaku's got a wry grin on her face during it.
Yeah,
but
I'm not. Again, I'm probably being too harsh on it just because I was not feeling much throughout most of this chapter. So this is just the point where I was just like, is this all it's going to be? Is like a bunch of like snapshots of stuff that we've either already done or should have been done in the last epilogue, and then like a quick moment of being like, hey Senku, do you ever want to settle down or something like that? So I think it was just like the tone. It's honestly not that bad of a moment or anything like that.
They finish up the ceremony. Like Jasper, how like kind of unites Ruri and Chrome, and he thinks about all the times that the two of them shared.
I'm truly impressed that you remembered his name. I was gonna be like, Ruri's dad. Shows up and weds them.
It's also Kohaku's dad, I'll have you know.
I was gonna say Ruri and Kohaku's dad shows up.
That's his final form. That's his ultimate digivolution.
Yeah, that's what he needs to get a step beyond.
It's Kohaku's dad, Ruri's dad, Kohaku and Ruri's dad.
Oh wait, no! It's just saying Jasper is a different character.
Fuck! It's the other male in that village. Some other precious metal.
I'm still gonna give you all the props because I would have never in a million years pulled it. I would have been like, no, I don't think they ever named that character.
I do not remember his name now. Then, if it's not,
it might just be Ruri and Kaku's dad. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up real quick though. Going to the Dr. Stone Wikia.
I could tell you the name of Suika's dog, and I can't remember this guy.
Let's see. Kohaku. I'm gonna go to her page. It's gotta have like familiar relations, right? Kokyu. Kokyu? K-O-K-U-Y-O.
All right, I was never gonna get that then. Kokyu.
I would have never. Again, let's just call him Jasper. Who's gonna take this from us?
Jasper's dead. Everyone say hi to new Jasper.
Oh, no, Jasper.
I know that we mastered the immortal human technology, but he's dead. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, he fell into the ocean or something.
There's a cute moment where like they're all crying together, and Y-Man, who has been given a bow tie for the occasion, says, "Why do the humans expel the eye water?" Chrome all of a sudden gets a moment of inspiration when he hears like Gen explaining why people cry in emotional moments. And he's like, "Ugh." And Ruri's like, "Is something wrong?" "No, just kind of like I might have an idea." And she's like, "It's okay if you rush back to the lab. I understand." Aw, it's cute. And they run to the lab together, still in their wedding attire. And he says, "Well, what if we like manage to slip something through here back through time?" And Zeno goes into some really heavy scientific mumbo jumbo, and Senku summarizes it as, if what we can send back is either a piece of Wymat self or flashes of the Petra beam, equivalent to no more than an atomic particle. So incredibly tiny stuff. They briefly explain it, but Zeno comes up with the idea, and Senku come up with the idea of like, well, but if we were to do this in a pattern that you could read with something that picked up the signals, then there might be hope. And immediately Genryou is like, oh, like with Morse code, we could send some sort of a message. So Chrome comes up with the idea of like, oh, so if we all one day do master time travel, we should send a message back to ourselves at this point to let us know that it is possible. And Senku's like, yeah, I did that once when I was a kid. So, but they're like, yeah, we're at the point where we at least have a device that could like pick this kind of thing up and read it now. And they hold like a massive event for this. They tell everyone about it. There's a nice moment where Manami, I think is her name, the reporter lady, is reporting on the situation. So it's like, oh, isn't that nice that she, got to like do what she wanted to do again. And so they're holding a big press event for it, and they're like, all right, we're going to receive the signal now. So this is our chance to actually get it. We'll get it in Morse code, and we'll translate it in real time. Will we ever get it? And Senku takes the same pose with the antenna that they have, just as he did when he was a kid. And they're like, they start receiving a signal. The antenna starts reacting. They're like, oh my God, we're getting some sort of reaction. We've gotten a message from someone in the future. And so they start translating it. And it says, hello to you all, denizens of the past. My name is Byakuya Ishigami. Dun dun dun!
Whoa! So this is why I was intrigued. I guess we should finish the actual chapter. There still is, I guess, 2 pages left.
Everyone is shocked, Senku included. Chapter title is dropped to us. 1D, future messages. I was like, what's going on? How didn't Byakuya Ishigami die? What the hell? And how is this possible? And Yurisu like, yeah, we can make a time machine. It's onwards for him. And Senku's like, that's right. It's time to get excited. But even though he is excited, he also looks like, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, this is an intriguing little thing. Once they develop time travel, I suppose anything's on the table. Any character who you thought was dead could potentially have survived. Although I guess the only characters who really ever died were the astronauts. I mean, everyone on Earth got petrified, and like some people were confirmed dead, but they suppose like theoretically this could be a whole thing.
Right.
But regardless, like just the idea of like getting some kind of closure with Byakuya and Senku is intriguing to me. I felt like if you were going to tell another Dr. Stone story, this is the one I would most like to see be told. So I'm in it. As I said, like throughout most of this chapter, I was kind of just like, all right, I get it. It's fun seeing all these characters again. Some of them get to do the little quirks. But that was a moment where it's like, okay, I actually want to see where this goes now.
I feel like after this moment, Senku would have like laid out a decree as, like the savior of the world and the science leader and stuff, saying it's like, all right, if anyone at all familially related to me has children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, none of them can be named Byakuya. I'm laying this down. It's like, none of that is like, oh, it's actually just a descendant of Senku. It's like, no, none of that's going to happen.
Fuck that.
It's either a past Byakuya or no Byakuya at all. Oh, God damn it. World Trigger.
Nick, I can't believe you would take that tone with World Trigger. Now, come on. Let's start building our Create a Wrestler.
Chapter 238, the Away Mission Test, Part 34. Look, I like Create a Wrestler creator things too, but I like using them, not watching someone else use them.
I do think, for the interest of time, we should not go through this entire chapter because, quite honestly, a lot of it is just explaining the different mechanics to this creation machine, where it's like, oh, hey, you can change its stats, you can do all these things, and they're like, oh, hey, wait, different characters have different try-on limits. So like low users like Senku have a much different limit than characters like Chika. And then there's like but every team has a universal budget that they can spend up to.
Right.
So there's
So presumably no one's going to have an army of these larger than anyone else's. I think that they have to kind of jump to that conclusion.
Yeah, they basically are like, okay, there's like a cost, we have to work around it, and then it just comes down to like, oh, hey, here are a couple different strategies. I guess the coolest part is that is this Ko's team? No. No, it's, I forget which character. It's the team Yuma's on.
It's Utagawa's squad.
Utagawa? Okay. The fuck's Utagawa? Shit, whatever, who cares? Anyway, they ask Yuma what his thought would be. Ryo. Okay. I don't know who that is either. So they ask Yuma, and Yuma gets to be like, oh, hey, here's some insight from me. And I think actually the fact that like you could put multiple units on a map and people wouldn't know which one they'd be going against, and actually you could be like, oh, there's 30, and then there's like 20 crap ones but 5 really strong ones.
Yeah. Yuma basically comes up with the idea of like, yeah, people are going to be confused by all this new information, so we're just going to blitz everyone while they're trying to figure out what to do, because it's going to be a lot more information. These are all going to be people that, like, it's not going to be familiar opponents for any of them. It's going to be like, oh, look at this weirdly differently shaped thing. And while they're trying to figure that stuff out, we're just going to blitz them.
Yeah.
We could literally make, like, a bunch of all units that all have the exact same stats, but if we give them different appearances, people will think that they have different abilities, and we'll take advantage of their confusion. That'll be our strategy. And they're like, all right, cool.
Yeah, we don't get to actually, like, see a whole bunch of different teams discuss this. It's just Osamu's squad and then Utagawa's squad. I know it's not Suwa's squad, sorry. We just get to see them discuss it. So, in a way, I'm grateful we don't have to see, like, 8 different teams be like, what if I put the hat on my dude? That's a fun mechanic or something like that. There's no nonsense like that, but also just, like, no progress has been made in the World Trigger universe right now. We've just talked about how this mechanic works, and we don't get a chapter next month either.
No, and it's just this big, long thing of like, hey, check out the stats screen for this. And it's like, Ashihara, are you secretly making a World Trigger video game? No? Then stop this!
This is absolutely a moment where you're like, oh, this is like really interesting information to put in the World Trigger tabletop role-playing game when it comes out.
Put this in Unmasked, the secret World Trigger data book, please.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll pick back up with you in 2024, World Trigger.
I know we were like kind of predicting that this was going to happen anyway. I didn't think that they're still going to be on the away mission test was going to take a cruel new form, whereas like, and this one will feature an even more different set of rules for them to have to get used to.
It doesn't help that there's like no satisfying conclusion to this payoff. It's not interesting to watch the game get played either. So even if there are like cool new robots or whatever and new strategies, you're just like, I don't give a shit. I don't get to see it. Like, I get to see a couple chibi characters react, and then someone's like, this was the end result at the end of the game. This team won. Isn't that cool? So. But Nick, let's kick this back up a notch by talking about Eden Zero. Chapter 263, Luna. So last time, the best
Luna, we talked about like there's like 3 different series we're talking about right now that have characters named Luna.
Yeah. But this one, thankfully, has the differentiate feature that there is the coolest new character of 2023, Lightning Law, of course, who looks very shocked at the start because he's like, you turned my robots to water. And Laguna has the cool line of, don't worry, I'm turning you into water next. A filthy puddle of mud. And he just throws a bunch of water at him. Lightning Law, very cool character, says, why do you think this is going to work?
and just electrocutes him. And he says, "My power is
water that touched it."
He says, "My power is electricity." I hate this manga so much. What a fucking nothing line from a stupid character.
This chapter of Eden Zero brought to you by the 8-year-olds that Hiro watched having a play fight while making this chapter. So, what? My power is electricity, so I zap your water. Well, but you're a robot, so my water short circuits you.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
As it continues, Lightning Law is like, your power is hopelessly useless against me. And Laguna is like, no! And then splashes him more water, and he's like, water makes your circuits short circuit. And you're like, are these robots not waterproof? Like...
Well, I mean, considering that they're not poison proof.
Yeah, I guess
no.
I guess if there's poison air or whatever.
Yeah, their weaknesses are each other.
But he's like, water conducts electricity, so I'm just going to electrocute you. And Laguna's like, oh, I guess it's a game of chicken then, see who can last the longest. And Lightning Law's like,
it's me. Your body can't handle it this long. So,
but what if I go Super Saiyan?
Yeah,
in a truly spectacular moment of, again, character writing, Laguna says,
what if I just got stronger? And he ether drives, and he reveals his new form, which just looks like Juvia from Fairy Tail with a different haircut. It's all I can see. And he is...
I didn't even make that connection, but yes, you're right. It is basically Juvia's coach.
Yes. And then he has ice powers now. Nick, why does he have ice powers?
It's a more advanced form of water powers, Quinn. Come on. Obviously. Next, when he goes to the next level beyond, he'll have steam powers. Clearly.
This stupid concept would almost work if, like, you had done something to be like, water's not going to do this. I need to change. Something in me needs to change. And you're like, that's how it is. His water powers have changed.
I'll do it for you okay. Literally right now. Ever since I've been an actor, I have been putting on the emotions I thought that I was expected to show people. I haven't actually truly felt anything. My heart has been frozen. But now I will call upon that frozen heart to help me to protect the only thing I've ever felt any true feelings for, my friends. And then he uses ice powers. There.
As opposed to this version where it's like, I have ice powers now. It's so funny.
If you put in 5 seconds of thought, you too can make this sequence more satisfying than as written.
It's truly just a moment of Hiro being like, man, kind of wish I could use gray. I wish I could use gray again. Because that's all it is. He just does.
Did I not put a gray XP in the series? Whatever. I'll just give it to this guy.
I'll just have this dude turn into him and his girlfriend. It's not even interesting. He makes a sword of ice and stabs Lightning Law through the chest. And Lightning Law's like, I'm being defeated. No. And he punches Laguna, and he's like, yes, I am strong. This is why I joined up.
I'm the winner.
Yeah, this is why I joined up with Void, because humans are worthless and suck, and androids rule. There's no peace between us possible. And Laguna's like, no, Shiki will make that fantasy a reality. And Lightning Law, in his cool speech, is like, no human has that kind of power. But Laguna's like, no, he does. He's already made the fantasy a reality. At least he has on our ship. And if you would change the way you would look at things, there'd be no need for us to fight.
Standing here, I realize you were just like me, trying to make history.
Lightning Law's like, that's stupid. You suck. Laguna's like,
fine, you had your chance. We're all about peace with robots. It's just a question of whether or not you have a heart. And he just cuts Lightning Law apart. And that's it. That's
how you make peace.
That's the conclusion of this fight. That's one of the Erasion 6 Galactica going down. Very satisfying and cool.
I'll never forget in Rocky 4 when Rocky Balboa took out his sword and cut Ivan Drago in a bunch of pieces, and then turned to the crowd and went, "If I can change, then you can change."
Well, he kills Ivan Drago. It's his dismembered corpse on the ground, and then he just starts.
It's actually all about peace.
Everybody know here. We don't need to do this Cold War. We're all on the same side, everybody. Let's go, America. Fuck, this is so goddamn stupid. Now, Nick, we of course have to have our 1-page look into the past, right?
Oh, we're spoiled, Quinn. We don't have a 1-page look into the past. We have it's like multiple pages. What is this?
Yeah, we have 3 pages look into something else happening. So we cut over to Xiao Mei, who's floating in space. Weirdly, we don't close in on her feet at any point.
I was shocked.
It's truly a great sign of restraint. And she's noting that the Eden Zero is going to explode in 7 minutes. But if I know them, I bet they can find a way out of this mess. Or perhaps they are doomed to become space dust. Who is this? Like, they literally note that there's someone she's talking to, and I still don't get. I'm like, you're talking to one person. Like, who is this? Everything's stupid. Mother, the big, giant, floating space lady, is like, no, I know they'll make it. I believe in them. They're the heroes who will save the cosmos. Thank you for guiding them all this way, Luna. And we're like, what? This character's name's Luna? My entire world's been upended. And she's like, no, in this world, I call myself Xiao Mei. Cool.
Why does she call? Why is she also named Luna though? Why?
Because she's mother,
and
she's. Nick, come on! I can't fill in the blanks for you. Here,
okay,
you gotta do some work on your end.
I am going to put a pin in this, and just because I'm going to just be like, all right, I'm gonna wait to hear Hiro's explanation for why he decided that this character is also named Luna, because you could very easily have just done this reveal of saying like, oh, Xiao Mei has a direct connection with Mother. They are on speaking terms with each other. That would have been a big reveal, but the fact that they're like, Luna, are you referencing something? Has something named Luna been referred to in the past, or is this a new thing? I feel like this is a new thing, because I don't remember anything about a Luna up to this point at all. Like, there's been no like, oh, the mysterious Luna is the key or whatever, anything like that. I don't remember any allusions to that.
I could sit here and try to discuss what it is. The answer's not going to be satisfying. I can't sit here and just be like 700 times on me, but 701, I'm going to figure this out. Like, maybe Hero will write something good this time. I can't expect that to happen. There's things like, oh, she's Mother, like Mother Earth, and she's the moon, but like, I don't understand how you would like equate Mother to Mother Earth, because she's not like a localized planet. She's like quite literally the most isolated thing in all of reality. So like, I just don't get what the connection is. I don't get why I'm supposed to give a shit. I don't get why we broke our stupid monotony of 1 page of flashback to then have this random scene instead. This arc is like becoming infamously bad for me. I've truly just reached a point where I'm like, I just want this to end. I think the fact that it's like supposed to be a cool moment that Laguna, whose powers went from like, if you cry, you turn to water, to actually I can control all water, and that was just a dumb gimmick I had, to now I control ice, is just like a dumb evolution of a character's powers. I don't understand why we're spending time with it, so whatever. I guess the thought process is straight up the gray Juvia thing, that he had Juvia's power set, now he gets her costume, but then gets Gray's powers. But that's such a meta, stupid trail of logic to follow. I don't understand why anyone would be like actually impressed by that or like enjoy that.
Oh my god, that's actually right. So, I, I, I did not clock that at all. Eerie Gray in the chat points out that when Laguna does his overdrive, he's got an armband on his arm that reads G and J for Gray and Juvia.
Oh. Who gives a shit? I don't. I'm just like, I don't understand. At some point, I just had to realize I'm not the target audience for this. Here, maybe like people who are diehard Hero fans are like losing their mind. Like, this is so cool. And I'm trying to think like what my nerdy equivalent would be to this. Like I'm trying to think like, oh man, what if they do one of those Sonic games where like modern Sonic meets past Sonic, but then there's like a weird situation where like modern Shadow meets classic Shadow who never existed. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm losing my mind. I'm just like, I'm trying to think what dumb thing my stupid brain could care about that's supposed to be on this level. But right now I'm just not coming up with an example. But if it's your deal, it's your deal.
At the start of the year, I said when we had to read Earthchild, and yes, I mean had to, that it made me hate shonen. This was kind of like a very micro example of that, where it's just like, look, it's just this shonen battle thing that just very much engages with just really stupid shonen tropes and stuff, but in such a way that I'm just like, oh god, I don't like this. Wait, all that I read is this stuff. That made me feel really bad for a second. Okay. All right. I think we're through the worst of it now.
Yes.
I think. Okay. Let's move on into Cipher Academy. Chapter 47. Sometimes even a kappa gets hit by a stray bullet.
Sure. I've got that tattooed on me, actually.
Yeah.
It's a, like kind of a modern quote you just want to keep with you. I get it in calligraphy, and then I post it on my my Instagram, like just like with like a flower background to it. Sometimes even a kappa gets hit by stray bullets. Hashtag inspiration. Hashtag love.
And then like all the comments are like, "Oh my god, this is the most insightful thing I've ever
Too
heard."
true. 17 hearts. I'm like, yeah, I know.
So Iroha and company have run into a martial mahjong forced encounter event. There are two people who are sitting there waiting for them, and Iroha's like, "Oh, mahjong. Never really played mahjong before," but he just takes the table and he's like, "This'll be elementary." Just puts on the confident face. But he says like, "Hey, look, as long as someone advances, it doesn't matter who wins the game, because one of us will keep on going forward. It's still a win." They said like, "Okay, well, like only 4 people can play mahjong." So they look at Ensa and I haven't memorized her name. It's long. They're like, "Yeah, we can't play with 5 people. So what are you two gonna do?" And so they're like, "Why don't you tell us the rules first?" And Spy Girl says, "Okay, in martial mahjong, you use tiles that have hiragana, katakana, and kanji on them. So the different language sets. There are 45 different tiles for each type for all the Japanese syllables from A to N. A total of 135 different tiles are in the game, as well as one extra, the Ha tile, or Haku, which can basically be a wild card tile." So they're like, "Okay, yeah, I get that." So the Mahjong player is trying to use syllables instead of numbers. So in other words, you're not only like playing them into sets, but your runs are words. And so Ensa volunteers like, "Can I go first?" And she rolls up her sleeves and gets set to go. And so it's going to be Ensa and Iroha versus Karigane versus Hanagoromo. And so it's a big 2-page spread with all 4 of them taking the table. It's nice. It's a cool looking 2-page spread. It's neat. And so we focus on Iroha's hand during the first play of this, as he's analyzing what he's got. He's like, "Okay, so I could do this. I could make the stuff with 3 syllables like this." He's analyzing his hand, and he lays down a tile that he doesn't need, and Hanagoromo analyzes what he does and then says, "By the way, you can't take a tile and turn it sideways to make a different word."
I love it because it felt like it's like a little detail. Like, I know you want to. I know you exist in this way of trying to fuck the game up. Yeah.
So there was, "Oh, how'd you know I was going to do that?" And but they're like, "Okay." So And so they establish like, okay, so there's like all these limitations of this game and stuff. And so some time goes by. Iroha gets to a point where he's like, okay, I just need to attach something to these two tiles and I'll have all 4 of my melds. So it's just going to come down to whether they'll be drawn or if someone will discard them and so that I can use them. But as he goes through, he sees that a tile gets put down and he's like, oh man, I could have done this for like kosuto, the Japanization of the word cost. But he couldn't do it in that moment. So meanwhile, Nohime and Kogoe are watching and they're like, why isn't Iroha Hazaka trying to go out? And Kogoe says, well, because then it would have made his Pinfu disappear. I don't know all the rules to regular Mahjong. I'm just keeping up with what's going on if you're not talking about the scoring. The scoring of Mahjong is the big thing that I don't get about it. So he's trying to figure out, like, okay, should I declare this? No, I could switch it out with this draw. But when you discard something, immediately Karigane declares Ron, which means that you're going out, you're completing your set with something that someone's just discarded. And immediately she's like, 24,000 points. So her score goes up 24,000. Iroha Hazaka loses that. And they only started with 30,000. So everyone's like, oh, shit. That's a huge loss for Iroha immediately. They equate it to, like, this is like if you, in the first round, you hit the ball and you get 10 runs at the immediately. Very big lead. But Ensa realizes something that's even beyond that, which is she actually Iroha could not read her, which is like his big thing, is reading people's expressions. So that's bad. And immediately Karigane gets this kind of evil look on her face, but she's smiling pleasantly, and she says, like, hey, be careful. Once you hit 0 points, it's over. If you come in 4th place, you'll be banned from the metaverse for 1 year. And says, like, wait, what happened to the students who got here before we did? And Karigane says, I sent them home without a scratch on their bodies. And she names them all, too. And Hanagoromo says, like, yeah, Nakigara never got here. According to my research, there's a student with that name that seems to have never existed in the first place. Okay. But Kaigane says, when you said earlier, like, it doesn't matter who wins the game, it's still a win for us. What a wonderful thought. But my philosophy is different. Whether it's a war or a labyrinth, as long as you make it home alive, you've won. So the reason that she has joined the expedition is not to help them all. It is to make sure that everyone gets home safely, even if she has to defeat them on this floor and ban them from the metaverse so that they will be safe. It's pretty cool. It's nice. It's a cool, different antagonistic approach.
It's a different sort of philosophy.
So Iroha realizes that she's just actually been acting as a gatekeeper. She hasn't been progressing on from this floor, and she hasn't been waiting for people. She's just been like, I'm just going to stay here and send people back. And they're like, well, what do we do? Especially if, like, she's reading Iroha, he can't read her. What is this master detective actually seeing? And she's like, yeah, once I've sent all 4 of you home, then I'll just clear the dungeon for you. So she's even seeing as far ahead as getting rid of Koshibai, even though she's not participating in the hand. And then Koshibai also realizes, like, wait, all 4 of us? And Hanagoromo is like, yeah, she's been blocking me here too. I'm sorry. We have not been teamed up. I've been stuck here.
I have been held hostage by this woman for a while now.
So Iroha gets serious, takes out his hair tie and ties his hair back, and he's like, I was convinced you were a fanatic, but I guess you went easy on me during the murder mystery, so thanks. And Karigane says, no need to thank me. You're no match for me. So, hey, big setup for our next big matchup here.
Yeah. There's a level of just like, I don't understand the rules to Mahjong, so I'm just going to continue reading. I do think that I had a small issue, which is just like, Cipher Academy has done this trick a couple times, which is like, here's a character who you haven't thought a lot of, but actually they're a super cool badass because we're like spending time with different characters now. So I'm in a place where I'm only able to like give so much. Also because the sort of hole that exists in her philosophy is that like all of the best people are past her already. So she's really only sort of weeding out the no-name characters that I had no like connection to or anything like that. So it would have been maybe different if like she had revealed like, oh, I sent home like a character or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think they were just like essentially like the other class characters we didn't have any affection towards.
Right. So the characters that we've already met and know are cool are still like in the battle, and those that we haven't met yet to learn how they're cool are just like, we'll learn how they're cool later.
That's down the line. Don't worry about it.
Mhm. All right, it's time for Pink Fiction Kagurabachi Chapter 8. I'm sorry. Are you sighing? What's wrong, Quinn? What's wrong? Aren't you having a good time?
I have been trying so much, but this is the chapter I was like, okay, maybe this series is still
Maybe it's a bad idea. So last time we learned that there's gonna be a big auction event with the criminal underworld. There's gonna be swords there, swords to get and stuff. So Chihiro's thinking about that. Char is sleeping, and then he now is cleaning stuff up, I guess. And she's like, "Yeah, I'll take care of things while you're out." And Chihiro leaves. Yep. We get our chapter title, Chapter 8, Norisaku Madoka, I Will Change. Yeah, you're gonna change from alive to dead. So
Whoa, Nick.
spoilers for 2 pages from now. We get a character saying, "My name is Norisaku Madoka. They call me Daruma." So he's the guy who was trying to blow up Char before and kidnap her and stuff. He's flat top guy, aka like the one villain character we've met that's easy to distinguish from the others. So thanks for killing him. So after he got tortured by Mr. Shiba, he was like, "Hey, why didn't you go start a new life?" He tried to kidnap a child. What are you doing? First of all,
I was on board with this idea though, just like as the guy who was like way over his element, got like kind of tortured, got his foot fucked up, and like kind of sits here now and realizes like, oh, maybe I've kind of fucked things up. And I was just intrigued because I was like, you know what, this is a cool move to like take like a no-name character who like, because like the other ones like I think have died more or less. Like most of the other sorcerers have just been killed. So like the character who lives, you give them an opportunity, you could use them in a story. This is like a detail that Oda has used to like great success.
Sure.
Other authors. So it's like, hey, we're gonna take this character, do something cool with them.
He's got a cool flat top and giant earrings, and he summons Darumas that blow up. You could very easily make him into a good supporting character with a distinct design like that. Yes.
Absolutely. So Nick, well, let's see what they do with him.
So Shiba, he told Shiba about how like he was thrown out of his family because he's got bomb powers and everyone hates that about him. But she was like, "Hey, if you still feel that way about it, maybe it's not too late for you to change." And Norisaku reflects on this and he's like, Mr. Shiba gave me an amazing piece of advice. So he calls up his sister and he's like, "What do you want?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm quitting. I'm not gonna be a sorcerer anymore." And they're like, "What, you think that makes everything okay?" "No, but I want to make things right." And so she says, have you called Mom?" And he's like, I did try a bunch of times. She didn't pick up because it's like the middle of the night. So, okay, well, why don't we go together and you can apologize to her in the morning. I'll go with you and I'll pick you up. And hey, she comes to pick him up in the car. And he's like hobbling out to meet her. And he's like, "This is it. I'm no longer Daruma the sorcerer. From this day forward, I'm going to change." He turns to his sister and says, "Thanks for doing this. She's dead. She's dead in the driver's seat. She's been killed and gouged from behind." He looks in the back seat. There's an assassin there. He gets stabbed to the stomach and he's like, "What? No, my sister didn't do anything." Oh man, there's a really generic looking assassin in the back with creepy eyes. He's like, "You didn't finish the job, so I kill you." these deaths are for you not finishing your work. And he's like, wait, you mean Mom? Oh no, she didn't answer the phone because he killed her too. So he tries to summon a Dharma bomb to blow them both up, but he freezes it with his stuff. Because he's got a special sword. Ooh, special sword that freezes people. So he stopped the bomb, and then he just cuts straight through the bomb, and oh no, he doesn't cut through the bomb. Sorry,
No,
he sheathes the sword so that the ice lets the bomb explode, but it just kills him. Yep.
And his sister, yeah.
And his sister. Cool. So
it's so stupid. I hate this shit so much. I understand what it's trying to do. Like, I understand it's trying to make this, like, antagonist seem cool. But, like, I just have such an innate annoyance to the idea of, like, giving this character family and a backstory suddenly just to immediately kill them. And, like, again, it's supposed to be ironic because he's like, oh, actually, I didn't kill them. They would have lived if you hadn't tried to explode everything. So actually, it's your fault all of this happens. But it's just, like, again, like a dumb detail. Like, these moments take, like, work to build up to. Like, this could have been satisfying if, like, maybe we had time to see this character on his path to being reformed and had, like, a built-up moment to this of, like, hey, we get to see that he has this, like, troubled relationship, and maybe after proving himself a little bit, he has an opportunity to do it. There's a reason why, like, when characters die in series like Jujutsu Kaisen, for example, it, like, hits hard because we have time to, like, get to know and like those characters.
Right.
But this is just the thing that's like...
Right. No one dies in Jujutsu Kaisen. You shut up.
Sure, nobody ever dies.
You shut up.
Junpei is still alive. Nick, don't worry about it. I don't know where the anime is at this point, so I'm gonna go for the earliest possible death that's happened. But that's just the thing of, like, it doesn't have any punch here. It's just like, evil dude did an evil thing, and I'm like, it doesn't make me have any more affection for him as a character. This just feels like kind of lazy, clumsy writing that's trying to be edgy.
Yep. So then it turns out that so the guy with the sorcery that makes you experience your trauma that Chihiro killed, turns out he had a brother. And so he approaches Ice Katana Assassin guy and says, I want you to kill the boy with the scar. And Ice Katana Assassin guy says, sure. And then starts to draw his sword. And he's like, boy, I gave you the info. And he's like, it's for what comes next. I need blood pumping. And he grabs him. And somehow his hand is big enough that he, in one hand, grips the guy's wrist and his neck, like, all in one. So, the guy uses those, grip strengtheners a lot, presumably, because that's kind of crazy. But then, because of that, the guy activates his sorcery, which is, I guess, basically identical to his brother's, I think. So he experiences his trauma, which is, I'm so strong and I killed everyone, because he's super interesting. So he's like, oh, that's fascinating sorcery, and kills him too. Cool. All right. This guy is super dangerous because he killed these guys. All right. So he walks off and he goes straight into the place where Chihiro and Char are staying, and goes to kill Hinao. Oh no, he killed those other people. So the character that we've come to care so much about because of her
design,
hair buns. I mean, admittedly, Hinao's hair buns alone do give her a leg up on 80% of the characters in this series, who all look the same. So Chihiro blocks it with his sword, and it turns out, he's got the Cloud Gouger. He's got it, and so Chihiro calls out like, "Oh, get out of here!" And Char wakes up from her nap and looks through the door at stuff that's happening, and Ice Assassin guy is like, I came this way so we could battle with 2 enchanted blades, because even you coming to the auction where the swords would be would take too long for this manga.
This is just a weird... I'm assuming this is meant to be the I square up against this guy who everyone says is really strong, and I like barely managed to just survive, not even defeat him, and thus we'll have our showdown at a different point or something. I don't know. This is such a boring chapter, and this character who I was like kind of mildly interested in because there had been like a slow kind of build up to hierarchy for him, just for him to show up and immediately do something that I just absolutely hate in this kind of fiction. Immediately deflated it. Like, I'm looking at this last panel, I'm like, what a boring little loser. What a dope. What a sap.
Yeah, turns out this is the Sojo, the super ominous guy and stuff. But honestly, I didn't even peg that because, like, oh, he's got hair. That's his distinguishing feature. He's got hair.
He also has these marks under his eyes. That's like kind of the other thing. He has sort of like would look like bags, but also like little spots. That's sort of like the identifying thing. I'm not going to say like, Kagurabachi banished to the garbage realm or anything like that. I just want to note, was not a fan of this chapter, so I'm really hoping the series can like bounce back in some way. But I do think Sojo might just be ruined at this point for me. I truly don't have any interest in this character. This is the way you're going to build him up.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see the author go, hey, look at this potentially interesting story idea. There it goes. It's in the trash. Goodbye. Let's move on. It's new Exorcist time. What a relief.
How far away is One Piece?
4 more.
Oh my god.
Chapter 25, The Sixth Branch. Hey, so Yajima is officially captain of the new division. Hurrah! And so Suo talks to him outside, and he's like, oh yeah, I just wanted to congratulate you on becoming a captain, Captain Yajima. And Gakuro's like, I'll be going now. And Suo's like, don't try and hide it. How did you find out? She was... when the conversation happened, she was, if anything, one door away when it happened. Yes, she found out. She is at the school on duty at the place where you are assigned to be the captain of. Why are you surprised by this?
Did you hear it through the grapevine? Like, no, I heard it through the fucking door.
And she says she's been assigned to his division, which makes sense, and also is like, it's kind of a weird thing. It's like, hey, she's this guy, this person that he was looking up to. She's like the more experienced. She's the senpai character, and now he kind of is her superior officer in a sense. So a potentially interesting, weird dynamic there. But knowing this series, she'll just like go away for a while. But we'll see. Gakuro gets the warning that, like, hey, even though you're a captain, we're not going to actually, like, give you captain's privileges and stuff. She literally says, you're lower than a puppet for us. So don't, like, start... And I think it's the vice captain who's in the group is like, yeah, if you were a Nepo hire, then you might be full of unfounded confidence, but you're nothing but a pain in our butts. Yeah. Okay. It's just, look, it's just the way of this world. If people just talk about how shitty Gakuro is, I guess. So,
it'd be great. He's walking down the street, past by an old lady. She's like, "Do you know you suck eggs?
Specifically eggs.
Go pound sand, you bitch." You're just like, Nana.
Listen, Sonny, I hate that boy. Such a little wiener.
Oh, what a little dork. What a little nerd. I hate him so much.
But he talks about how his dad's dead all the time.
They're like, and you, ma'am, you want all of this in the will?
Look, we'll get to my last will and testament eventually.
And
more important business to do.
Word for word. I should talk my grandson a little more. His big stupid hair. Why has it got a little shadow in it?
So Gakuro has just concluded from all this that, being a captain sucks. And it's like, I don't really blame him because he's been told it sucks by everyone. So Also, however, there is a little barracks that is just outside the school building. So Suo grabs him by the wrist. Is like, "Oh, let's go and check it out." As it so happens, Shiroha is just there. Like, there's not really an establishing shot for her. It's just like, oh, she's there when they run by her, essentially. And she thinks right before they show up, like, oh, I should go get Yajima so we can go take a look at it. And instead, she sees Suo pulling Gakuro along by the wrist, and kind of looks between them for a second, then follows them from behind quietly. And so it's, it's continuing the thing of like, there's something going on between Shiroha and Gakuro, blah, 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 blah. They open the door, and there is a giant friendly spider in there. And I will not lie, between this and a lot of the newer series being terrible, new Exorcist went up a little bit in my book this week. This chapter in and of itself is not very good, but if they're going to have a cool giant spider companion for the rest of this series, it's like, all right, I'll take it.
I mean, if we're going to get excellence, we might as well get it.
Yeah, Suo immediately is like, oh my god, it's a giant spider. It's like, yes, it was. So she's like, can you go and get rid of it? And Gakuro's like, well, it doesn't seem to be a bad spider. And the spider's like rearing up. And Suo freaks out. And Shiroha rushes forward and literally glomps it. There is literally a glomp sound effect. So she kind of like stops it by embracing it. And she says like, oh, this is a Shikigami. Apparently it's going to serve us. And the character that Nue would call on sometimes is there. She's just kind of been there. We know nothing about her, so I haven't remembered her name. I haven't learned her name yet.
Is that the same person? I thought this was a different character.
Maybe it is. That's the thing. It's like, I know that there is a character that has shown up before, and I thought that this is the same one.
I thought the other character was like more of like a... I hate to use this word, but I thought more of like a lolly character. Like I thought she was like meant to look more like a little kid, whereas this one, I don't know. Maybe it is. Who gives a shit? I guess. I don't know why I care.
So, they talk about, I was like, oh yeah, a branch has a lot of important functions and blah 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 blah. So Nue's like, hey, you guys came, cool, and Suo's like, oh, I want to know more about this, and Nue says like, let's meet up at the pool after school to clean this guy, pointing at the spider. And Suo's like, oh, how do we have to wash the Shikigami? No. So Nue says, well, I won't force you to do anything. What about you, Shiroha? Shiroha's like, yeah, I'll join you. Fascinating. And then Suo sees Shiroha and Gakuro talking together, and she ends up joining them. So I guess Suo, the harem plan continues.
Yeah,
Quinn,
this was the chapter to be like, don't worry, I haven't forgot about Soa. Like, she's gonna be relevant. It's a love triangle, you could even say. Oh my god.
So they're all there, and Gakuro is like, are you gonna be okay washing the spider you're afraid of? And she pokes him in the nose. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So she immediately starts getting chased by the spider, and because they're in a pool to clean him, she slips, and she starts to fall. And so this trained exorcist, whose abilities have demonstrated that she's very agile, is falling. And there are multiple other people around, including a helpful Shikigami spider guy who is there to be their helpful companion, who is literally just needs to lift a leg up to catch her. But they're all like, Gakuro, catch her! So Gakuro catches her, and literally like catches her like bridal carry style. And Suo looks up at him and is like, you sure have grown, Yajima. Has he? Has he?
Sure. Theoretically, I guess he would have had to.
Whatever. She's getting the Doki Dokis because he caught her bridal style. Yep. So
it's great because this is like a moment that's nothing. That reminds me of that really great moment from Fullmetal Alchemist where Winry's like, I've never noticed he has such broad shoulders, and you're like, oh wow, this is like a beautiful realization of your feelings after like such a long and like detailed relationship with one another. So it's like cool we get like
garbage like this to remind us of great moments in manga history.
So Suo goes off to the side to like.
I love that we capture
after
this
tripping.
moment, by the way, as well, where she's like, "Come to think of it, you're grown," with just a generic shot of his chest, like not even like something where you're like, "Oh, I can see why she would be." You're just like,
He is wearing a t-shirt. You're right. What if you were like wearing like a logo tee?
Yummy boy. You're just like, what?
Wow, he is a yummy boy, huh?
Oh, I thought it meant my tummy. That's why I bought the shirt. That's my yummy boy.
This goes against sucking honey pot.
Oh no!
Oh no! I was too much of a yummy boy today. Anyway, Suo slipped and didn't get hurt, so she needs to go and take a break, I guess. So she goes off to the side, and this is so she and Shiroha can have a private conversation. What? Oh my god! 2 female characters talking? It's about Gakuro. So, yeah, immediately Shiroha's like, "Do you get along with Yajima?" And then Suo's like, "Wait, does that mean she likes?" Yeah. We definitely have a normal senpai-kohai relationship. What about you? Do you get along with him? And she's like, "Yeah, I think we get along very well." And so I was like, "Yeah, that's good to hear." Shiro's like, "I'm leaving." Okay. And then Shiro says, "Senpai, I can read a person's emotions, Bye." So,
What's really interesting is Suo very uniquely during this conversation had the exact same fucking expression in every single panel. So it's a way for us readers to also pick up that she's misleading us a little bit with the way she's talking.
Mm. Yes. Yes. That's what's going on. Yes. So yeah, essentially they say like, "Look, these girls are both crushing on Gakuro and they both fucking know a bit about the other. Okay? Okay. Cool." They watch the spider Shikigami guy, and then Suo gets self-conscious, is like, and then she's like, "All right, I feel bad being the only one who hasn't done anything here." So she jumps in and she starts spraying people with the hose and stuff. And they're like, "The Shikigami has been washed, which Shikigami need to be, I guess." Yep. What a weird chapter.
It's weird because on one hand, I feel like I shouldn't really dislike this chapter because this series is, I guess, better when it's not just trying to be like straight up like a Bleach ripoff and like, hold on, we gotta talk about your captain's promotion and like what that all means. Like that was just pure garbage. That made me be like, if there's a goddamn whiteboard in this next chapter, I don't believe there was one.
There wasn't.
But it's still in this weird place where I'm like, this isn't dumb enough. Like I hate that this series is trying and it's just not good. But there is a big dopey spider that got a bath. So like,
yes,
I'll give it like a 3 out of 10. 3 points for the spider.
Every chapter from now on is going to be elevated by the presence of that weird spider.
And that spider's never showing up again.
Aw. He doesn't even have a name. They don't even have a name. What is their gender even? It's a spider. Gender, spider.
That's what's on my ID.
2 on Ice. Chapter 7, Roadside Flower. Okay, Hayama doesn't know the rules of how the skiing competition is judged. So he's like just gotten the entire ass handbook and is like, "Oh, what about this?" And Kisara's like, "You don't need to know all of that." Too many details. She basically just says like, "Look, you're judged by essentially how difficult your performance is, plus or minus how well you executed. So harder performances get higher scores, and also you need to do them well. Blah blah blah." So Hayama says like, "Yeah, I've been watching a lot of skating videos lately," and he kind of reflects that like, when I used to watch anything on TV, I would always just be like, "Kisara's way better," but now I actually like, realize just how talented so many people out there are, and even skaters our age how talented some people out there are. And it's like I thought that they were in like this totally different world and I would never actually be able to get there. But now I kind of realize that like the scene on the path in front of me is actually starting to clear up a little bit. I'm actually going towards it and I'm actually excited about this competition. It's like, hey, you're growing up a little, Hayama. Isn't that nice? You're making progress. They split from practice for the day, and the twins, each of them goes off with one with Hayuma and one with Kisara. And so we actually have like a conversation between not Natsu, the other twin, I can't remember his name, and Hayuma, because they're walking together, and so they talk about a bunch of stuff. And he talks about like, look, if you guys are going to pair up, then it's not like, you pairing up with Kisara is going to completely just save her from the situation that she's in. You got to think of it this way, which is that like not all the people who skate together are just in it for the long term. It's fine if you pair up together, you have good breakup. And it's also okay if you have, one good breakup and you have a bunch of like bad ones, that just gives you experience and stuff. But he also knows that, like, yeah, me and Natsu are just like, we're going to go down together. They're tied together at the hip for their skating careers, it seems like. But he says, like, look, don't make your goal in all of this to, like, save Kisara because she's still the only one you see. Try taking a look at things from her vantage point, and because if you don't, any decision you make isn't going to be fully thought out. And it's just, it's a nice little thing. Is like, look, have some fucking perspective on the whole thing. And meanwhile, Kisara is riding in the car with Natsu, and she says, like, I kind of like regret it now because like when he was starting to figure out how to skate, he looked like he was enjoying it. I was just scared because of all the things that I wouldn't be able to do anymore because I'm a girl, and I became a coward because about competing and stuff. I feel like I've actually been the one who's been learning a lot from him. And she says, the scenery I see every day looks a little brighter. So, oh, isn't that nice? They're both improving each other. Isn't that sweet? And she's like, hey, I really want to do it. Whenever I first did the triple axel, I was just kind of thinking about the next thing ahead. I wasn't really enjoying the moment fully because everything feels like it's going to have diminishing returns. It's going to have limited time span on it. I was just thinking about one day I'm going to lose this. If I am able to do a side-by-side triple axel with Hayuma someday, I want to be able to enjoy that. I'm actually looking forward to that. So, hey, they're changing each other's perspectives. We cut ahead from there. Practice is done. Kirishima Cup. Look, it's the giraffe. He's here.
I love that guy.
And immediately Hayuma is like starstruck looking around all these skaters he recognized from seeing tapes and everything like that. And also he realized that there are people who are recognizing Kisara. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're like a celebrity here. Huh. Well, this is what it feels like to be at a competition. Huh. Natsu reminds them, hey, we're doing this so that you guys decide whether you're going to do pairs or singles. So remember that. Go out, do your best. And Kisara is the first of them to compete in the women's singles. And, Hayama, of course, knows, like, this is going to be the first time I'm actually going to be seeing her perform in person since we started teaming up. So she starts performing to La Strada. Kisara thinks about the very bad advice that she was given, which is, oh, if only you'd been born a boy. And she's like, God damn it. But she also thinks about, hey, after seeing Hayama, I remember that I actually love figure skating. So I'm going to make the view that I have right now beautiful. And she does a triple axel, and she lands it successfully. And of course, it was like, oh my God, super cool and everything. And it's like, we just get this note, like, this is going to be a big day that decides their fate together, to remind us of that.
Yeah, I mean, the triple axel is pretty cool. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this chapter. Nick, how do you feel?
It feels like something's missing. It feels like something's been missing since the first chapter of the series, honestly. Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe there'll be a big moment like during Hayuma's performance that will kind of manage to evoke that, like, this is what it's like to have this this view. There's a lot of that's been a kind of a big thing throughout the series, like the view that you have in this world, and maybe it'll hit home then. Something's not quite getting there yet, and it's saddening me.
Yeah.
Oh well. Elusive Samurai!
Stand up for a second.
We're getting there. Why are you tired? Why are you taking a break? Chapter 132, Sharing 1337. Look at that red and gold looking ass cover page. It looks cool and stuff. Hey, this chapter is about a competition going on between the Hojo army to have the best catch / capture / hunt, whatever, because there's treasure on the line. And immediately Tokiyuki sets out with the group like, oh yeah, we Izu Hojo excel at fishing, so let's go out. But they get to the docks and they realize that the Nanbu party that they're allied with has taken most of the boats, which is that old man who speaks through an interpreter. And so they're like, hey, why'd you take all the boats? And he speaks through his interpreter, and it gets, of course, really rude with them. And the interpreter just says, like, we've got way more troops in our army than you do. Of course, we're going to take the most boats. It makes the boat. That's all.
Yeah. Done and done.
Yeah. But of course, while the interpreter is saying that, he's going, so he's being, a dick.
He's a jerk face.
Yep. But Shizuka points out, like, hey, we don't have to just fish. And she says, Kojiro, Shina, you, I don't know who this guy is. She says his name, and I don't know who it is. But she says, like, look, there is a great hunting ground nearby here, because one wild boar is worth 100 fish. And she's really hyped up because she's really excited about getting, war funds, like she said in the last chapter. Oh gosh.
Ayame, I think.
Ayako. I blanked on her name, and I was like, it starts with A and ends in O, and I was like, what is it? She just uses her war club to just smack fish out of the water.
Sure.
All right, I guess. Look, I've bomb fished in Zelda. Why not? So.
Everyone was super cool when I did that. I remember the fishing place was like, you can stay around. We're definitely not going to kick you out.
It's fine. Genba actually does use fucking powder grenades to knock a bunch of fish out of the water, but he brings to the point of like, oh man, it drives the surrounding fish away. It's like, yes, it's bad. Natsu says, some saltwater fish smells bad. I'm not going to help out. And they're like, that's just because you grew up in the mountains. Now check out this fresh fish. And she takes a bite of it and she's like, okay, it's good. Oh, all right, let's do it. Yeah. So some people are influenced by money. Some people are influenced by a good meal. It's fine. Fishing is happening. Nita, the child of the general that they defeated before, is helping out with Hojo's group and he says, like, look, we don't really have a lot of members and you're also few in number, so we'll just join your party and we'll all work together and share the prize that way. Cool. And so they bring up the point of like, he's really just trying to get along with Tokiyuki, even though, he fucking led the army that killed his dad. But it's established like this is a big thing in history that they were like the same age. They became allies and they ended up like getting along together because their circumstances and age were so similar. They must have taken a liking to each other, essentially. Sheena reveals that in addition to just having a giant blade on her leg, there's also a heavy flail on a cable that she can just pop out of a hatch on the side of the thing, and she can snap it with her leg and just kill a deer with it.
Yeah, I love she basically can like do a fucking like slingshot using her fucking sword leg, and it's very stupid but very satisfying as well.
Yeah. So she kills a deer, looks over, and also sees that Kojiro has caught a boar, and she's like, oh, he should have asked for my help, and he just goes, lifts it, gorilla presses it, and he's doing this because he's like, my sword is twice as heavy as a normal sword, and I've got to get used to wielding it one-handed. So from now on, I'm just going to lift the heaviest objects I can find every day. All right, you do you, man.
It works for Zoro, man. All he does is just sit on the boat and do sit-ups. So, get you somewhere.
Yeah. Sheena looks at him and goes, I understand, Kojiro Dono. You have received a new life just as I have. I feel like your circumstances are a little different, but okay. He got a new sword. You had your fingers chopped off. Whatever. And we catch up with Shizuku a bit. They talk about how great Akie is. Cool. Then we catch up with Ayako and Shizuku while they're preparing all the stuff that Shizuku's preparing all the fish that they've caught. And Ayako is just kind of reflecting on how I could die literally any time fighting in this army. And because of that, my mind wanders while we're in between battles. For example, I wonder how Shizuku feels about the young lord. So she decides to, go and ask her.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. I guess
it is an astonishing move. Just be like, what if we talked about it? What if we communicated?
Now, I hope that this isn't ruined one page later. She's like, how do you feel about the young lord and marriage? And Shizuku gives the dictionary answer, oh yes, there would be many opportunities if depending on who Tokiyuki married. Choosing a legal wife is an important matter for me as his steward. A strategic marriage would be crucial for the restoration of the clan. And so Ayako's like, yeah, what if we both became his concubines?
Well,
in so many words.
It just starts with oh, yes. Well, obviously he'll need to have a strategic marriage to somebody appropriate, at his standings to increase his political power.
Yeah. Threesome, you up?
But that's his... That is what we get to. She is that's his legal wife. I'm talking about his concubine, and it's what if we Eiffel Towered him? And she's like, well, usually an Eiffel Tower is two men and one woman.
Also, follow-up question: what is the Eiffel Tower?
She's like, we have no context for what that means.
I mean, a cute image because she's embarrassed about it, so she's cleaning fish and she freaks out and sends one's head flying. But just again, it's y'all are 13 and you're talking about this 12-year-old that you both in very
sexual
bedroom terms.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's man, I hope we would spend more time with Ayako and Shizuku monkey paw girl. So all right. Okay.
We gotta just wrap it up. You have one more you gotta do, Nick. It's Akane-banashi. Chapter, story 85, my plan.
Akane-banashi. So we are told that there is this political struggle going on in the world of Rakugo. It's been alluded to really, and there's been brief mentions of the sides in it, and now we're just giving a straight up look, there are the traditionalists who are the Rakugo Federation, and there is the Arakawa School, Isho, and 3 of the 4 pillars are all trying to change the methods of rank promotion, and all these other things. And then there's Shigema. People like him are in the middle. They're moderates. But our journalist friend is the one who is recapping all this, because he's the major figures of the people on both sides haven't met in person for the last 7-8 years, which is ridiculous. Of course, that is around the time that, Kane's dad got the boot, so... but this has all been broken because Chocho wants to talk to Taizen, and Taizen has just gone into his dressing room, locked the door, and Chocho's like, I want to talk! You let me... Come on! Eventually, Tai just knocks on the door, and apparently that indicates, I don't want to fucking talk to you, but he doesn't say it. And Chocho's like, talk to me! Talk! Use your mouth and tongue and teeth. But he's eventually Chocho is just like, look, I met Shinoji's girl the other day. He's referring to Akane in that moment. And Tai opens the door finally. And Chocho's like, yeah, tell me, you still think that Shinoji's expulsion was your fault?
It's interesting. There's a lot going on here. Like from the start of finding out that Chocho is considered a traditionalist, which I can't see. But then like, oh, this character has a connection with Akame's dad and blames himself for what happened. So it's like, ooh, I wonder why. Intrigue, new stuff, curiosity abounds.
Also, it's funny that we have that question and then we cut to another scene where Karashi says, yes, that's exactly what I think. It's like, it's cute. I see what you did there, answering the previous question. So Karashi says, like, look, Asagao, this was not a plan to promote the event, just handing out flyers, that was it. But Kai's like, hey, but we got a good response this time. People, the 4 people who were here laughed and had a good time. So if people listen to the performances, they'll realize what a good event this is. And Karashi looks at her and doesn't like look down on her, but you can tell he's just like, you're wrong. He says, look, I know you said it's against the rules to promote a Zenza event, but can we not talk about this on social media? Because like my master might let us get away with it, or Asagao says that. He's like, well, Chocho might let us get away with it, but also I've gotten in trouble because of the aforementioned dispute that he's had as a Zenza from way back when, and so he's like, I can't make him look bad, so no, I'm not going to do that. So he says, like, look, it is possible. Karashi's like, all right, so it's possible, but you prefer not to. Okay, but the strategy of just like us talking to our friends and family and asking them to come and telling their friends to come, that's not going to work. They're not repeat viewers. And Akane's like, well, they'll come back because they like the performance. And Karashi's like, no. The rule of entertainment is what seems good sells better than what is good. This is fascinating. I never thought about it in these terms before, but the way he says it's like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, look, we know the quality of our work is good, but we need to think about what'll get new people to watch us. And afterwards, like, Akane's going home. She's like, I didn't have an answer for him at the moment. And after a while, he kept on bringing up like analytics and marketing terms, and it's just like Karashi's having a separate conversation from the other two, essentially.
Yes.
But she thinks about it's like, okay, look, all of my Ani-sans have held their own shows, so to be a Rakugoka, you've got to have like skills as an event promoter too. But like, what am I supposed to do right now? And then she thinks about something that Shigema told her. Hey, don't be such a baby. Be empty-headed. Tighten the loincloth of your heart. And Akane's like, empty my head. Be more stupid.
That is a way to interpret that, yes.
It's been now 2 weeks since the first study event, which is like halfway through the time that they have to work with. And Akane's been secretly working on something. We see like some of her text conversation with Asagao and Karashi, and I like how she uses the emojis, and they're just like, "What are you doing?" So they're like, all right. So Karashi says, like, look, don't get your hopes up. I'm sure it's a stupid plan. He says infantile, which might be even ruder, but then he's like, I already have several plans in place, so I'm just gonna ignore her idea. We'll go with one of mine. But they come into the backstage area, and Akane is wearing a big plushy costume. She is dressed up as a Tanuki. Big old mascot costume.
Yes.
And they're like, what is that? And she's like, what does it look like?
I thought this was pretty self-explanatory.
She introduces herself as Tanugan the Tanuki. And she's like, look, there's one animal that shows up a bunch in Rakugo. It's the Tanuki. So I got my friends to help me make this suit. And I do like that we just occasionally get reminders of like, Akane's got friends from high school who are not part of the Rakugo world and don't show up regularly, but she's got them.
Yes.
She has a life outside of the world of Rakugo and friends that she can call on.
Absolutely.
She needs some help. So Asagawa's like, yeah, but why did you make the costume? And Akane's like, duh, if you want to draw an audience, you need Kigurumi suits.
I don't know. Again, guys, pretty sure this is rather self-explanatory.
So Asagawa's like at a loss, and Karashi's like, I mean, I didn't think that this would be this infantile, but now that she's taken it this far, maybe it'll work. And Akane's like, yeah, got costumes for you guys too. Go ahead, get changed. I like how the woman who is running the place is taking pictures of them because, like, of course you would. Like, this is like such a spectacle. And yeah, Asagawa is a tanuki. Karashi is a fox. Asagawa is a horse, which is by design because the muzzle of the horse contains his pompadour. And Karashi is like going along with it. They're doing a pose. Akane is like, "This is my plan, Rakugo Zoo," and then Karashi's like, "What am I doing?" Takes off the costume. He's like, "No, I'm a fox now." And he looks over and sees that, like, fucking meanwhile, Hikaru got to go and participate in this big, cool event about, like, oh, the future of Rakugo. Arakawa New Breeze is coming through. And, yeah, we cut over to just see, like, part of what they're getting up to in this 4-person event that Akane missed out on because Hikaru beat her in the competition. And we get some more reflection from Hikaru because, like, hey, she achieved her goal. She defeated Akane, which was the entire reason she was sticking with Rakugo at all. But then afterwards, you know, she's like, look, I'm just here because they want to draw an audience, but that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm just going to rise to the challenge. So it's one of those kind of, like, eternal rival things of, like, Akane just wants to, like, have a cool Rakugo buddy. And Hikaru's like, that sounds like fighting words to me. Challenge accepted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see that 4-person event. I don't know how this idea at the event is going to go with the animal costumes. It sounds like we're bouncing around between a lot of different things, but more or less this is fine. This felt much more like a transitional chapter of Akane-banashi, but you know, important to still get these.
Yeah, this isn't even Akane's final form, though, guys. So,
no. Tanutan has so many more levels to go through. We haven't even gotten to, like, Shadow Tanutan or Golden Ecstasy Tanutan. There's gonna be a lot of cool stuff coming up in the future.
Gigantamax Tanutan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dark type Tanutan, which is different from Shadow type Tanutan, to be very clear. Nick, let us wrap this up with One Piece. Chapter 1097, Judy. We get a cool cover page of Kuma catching fish. It's very nice, and also fitting to this chapter. So
I know that he's using his push ability to just, like, you know, teleport them into catching them, but it kind of looks like he's just smacking fish.
Yeah, he's just missing it.
I also like the idea he uses his power to teleport fish to them to catch. But so we are still in the flashback, Nick, but we have jumped forward a little bit. And in fact, we will jump forward quite a lot in this chapter. Mm-hmm. We are starting at 30 years ago. Kuma, who is a teenager at this point, is the pastor at his church. And in particular, on Sunday, the elderly people who live in the village next to his come by, and he removes their pain for them. He uses his pawpaw fruit to push all of their pain out of them, and that gives them youth and vigor. And they note that, like, we really need this because, like, we have this, like, the heavenly gift we have to provide. It's very, very difficult. So thank you for this. That's when Ginny shows up, because they were like, oh, could you do this every day? And she's like, no, absolutely not. You guys are asking for a lot for people who aren't paying any money. They joke that she's Ginny the cheapskate. We see her. She's 21.
She has not bought new shorts in the entire time between these time skips.
I would say I do not think this character has an issue with Nami face. She has an issue with Nami personality, but that's a good thing to have. More characters should be like Nami in terms of greed. But this the design, F tier. This is bad costume design. I truly. This is some lazy shit. What if I had a tank top and a tiny pair of shorts? Oda, do better. He does better at the end of the chapter.
All right. I'll put the word sister on her tank top. You got it. Notes taken.
I hear you loud and clear. So there's a little joke. Some of the elders are like, "Oh, Ginny's just doing this because she's sweet on Kuma," and he's just like, "Oh, that's very nice of you to say."
How dare you all tell the truth?
But they note that the celestial tribute is harder to get, or the heavenly tribute, because of the new King Bakori, who is a cruel man with a heart of stone. And they can't be sick, because then they can't make their payment. And if they can't make their payment, they go to jail. And while you're in jail, you can get killed. Like, you just die, probably, because he doesn't feed the people who are in prison. There's a scene that I don't quite get. I thought it was King Bakori eavesdropping on them and, like, doing, like, the oh shucks thing as they're, like, clearly talking ill of him. And he just takes it as compliments because he's like an evil dickbag. But I truly don't know if that's the implication we're going for or anything like that. Is it? Okay, apparently it is. I didn't get it, and I thought he would have reacted harshly to this, to all these condemnations, but it takes years before he really does anything. So all the old people, all the elderly leave, and Kuma waves them goodbye, and he closes the door of the church, and we see a big, giant paw bubble, similar to the one with Zoro and Luffy at the end of Thriller Bark. And Kuma inhales before jumping into the bubble, and we see that he is just writhing in pain. We see Ginny kind of on the ground with her head in her knees, just kind of like stomaching it, and then once it's over, she's crying, and she just notes that he does this every week. He takes on the pain of all these people, and Kuma says he has no choice. That mass of pain and suffering won't disappear until somebody accepts it. And if you didn't do anything with it, then it just goes back to the original person. And he's fine with it. He's fine with all this pain because he is delighted to see their happiness. You're like, God, fuck, I hate this dude. I hate this. It's just going to destroy me. It's already destroying me because I know how things go, but there's just going to be more details like this that make it harder for me to stomach that this guy doesn't get like a happy ending. The happy side of it is they got some food though from the elderly people. Cut forward, couple more years, 5 more years. We open with Ginny being like, "Let's get married," and he's like, "What? No." And she's like, "Why not? You love me. I know you do. I'm gonna make you happy." And again, fucking heartbreaking. Kuma's like, "I'm sure you would," but then he remembers his father pleading when they were arrested, like, "No, I'm the one who has Buccaneer blood. Don't enslave my daughter or my wife and son as well." And Kuma just thinks, "I don't want to bring you misery by connecting us like that."
Doesn't even talk to her about it.
Yeah, he immediately changes the subject by asking, like, "Oh, hey, check out this newspaper about the freedom fighters. That's really cool, and their leader, Dragon, he's so awesome. One day I want to go out to sea and use my life to help others as well." Cut forward like another 3 years. We're going to say we jump around a lot in this chapter. And a disaster has struck. All the elderly people are being taken prisoner, and Kuma is like intervenes, like, what are you doing? What do you stop what you're doing? And one of the people that's arresting these elderly people is saying, like, "You don't understand, Father. The laws have changed in this country. We can do whatever we want now with people from the South." And Kuma's like, "You're going to turn them into slaves? That is an unforgivable sin." And he uses his powers to kind of blow them all away and start something. And we cut over to King Bakori, who's talking to an advisor, who's like, "Hey, I don't think you're like new enslaving the people in the South policy is like super popular, especially people in the South." And he just says, like, "Don't worry about it. In time, I will teach everybody to be prejudiced to everybody in the South.
That'll happen.
And everyone shall learn to accept that my incredibly arbitrary prejudice is actually just the way things are supposed to be, because humans are naturally hateful creatures.
He explains that starting today, only the north side of the island is actually Sherbert Kingdom, and that the world government decides how much heavenly tribute is owed by citizen numbers. So if they cut out all the dead weight of the elderly who can't pay the tribute, then everybody in the north prospers. So One Piece famously an apolitical manga right now, especially in our current climates. We cut over to prison where Kuma has been arrested along with Ginny and a couple other members of their group. And Kuma's like, why are you guys in here? And they're like, because we clamored for them to let you go, so they beat us all to a pulp and threw us in here too. And Kuma gets radicalized. He's like, this...
like, very quickly and understandably.
In like a heartbeat, he's like, these motherfuckers. Like, this is seriously like taking everything away. This has become a land of the haves and have-nots. And if we want to fight back, it feels like we're gonna have to take on the whole government at that point.
Because this isn't just a bad king. It's all the people in charge of the entire world are responsible for this.
There's an explosion at that point, and who should intervene on our group that's being held prisoner but Ivankov and Dragon. There's a little bit of an interaction where like Ginny's like, oh my gosh, is that you, bro? And Ivankov is like, listen up, Kuma, if you're still the same man as that boy back then, come with us and change the world. And we get sort of a quarter 2-page spread. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
We get a big spread of the Revolutionary Army, with Dragon in the front, and Ivankov and Kuma. And I think some of these might be other members as well. That looks like that's, I think Betty is her name, and to her left might be Karasu. It's kind of
might be Karasu. Yeah.
It might be. It's still a little tough to tell. But Ginny's also like, I'm gonna come too. But the narration is like, yes, these were the freedom fighters. But after this great era of piracy or the arrival of the great era of piracy, and then the fall of Uhara, this group took arms. And with Kuma, in addition to their other pillars of Ivankov and Dragon, they underwent a transformation and they became the Revolutionary Army.
Ooh.
There's a bit of discussion that goes on. I think the most notable thing that comes from it is that Kuma asks, like, hey, how do you know how to use weapons, Dragon?
Yeah.
Dragon says, I spent time in the Navy, but I couldn't find any justice they wear on their backs. So,
which makes sense and also connects a lot with, Garp wanted Luffy in the Navy, and it's, I mean... you don't need all the details right now, because it's like, that all tracks.
I am definitely subscribing more to the theory that Garp or Dragon goes with Garp to God Valley, and when that whole incident happens is when he kind of becomes radicalized, because it would start to like add things up a little bit date wise. But he's basically just like, I fuck them. The Navy sucks. There's like a joke that's like, it's strange to be on the at odds with the Navy when we also just want to help people. But Kuma's like, well, anyways, I'm with you all the way, Dragon. And more time has passed. 8 years.
We skip Bonnie's birth, like.
Well, Nick.
I think
maybe let's put a pin in that for a quick second. So
I think we do, because I'm pretty sure that she's in the present,
Nick!
not 14.
Nick, let's put a pin in that for right now. So we're now 14 years ago in a certain country. And we see Ginny, and she has a cool design now. They gave her an outfit that actually looks interesting. She has this chicken bone hanging out of her mouth. It's very.
I love her hair
cool.
too. It's like, because it was just like hanging down, and now it's like little tails instead.
Yeah. So they say, "Wow, you look really happy, Ginny." And she's like, "Oh, is it showing? Tomorrow's the big day. We're gonna meet up with Kuma's group. Remember? I can't wait." And a bunch of the other people are like, oh, it must be so cool to be Kuma, to have her affection or whatever. But the figure approaches. We don't see who it is, just like a shadow of some feet. And then we end the chapter cutting away to the Revolutionary Army headquarters in Boltago, where someone calls Dragon. It says, Dragon, Ginny's been captured. So that's the way the chapter ends. Nick, let's address what you just talked about.
The elephant in the room, yes.
The elephant in the room. So, yeah, it is strange. We're like, oh, if Ginny is Bonnie's mom, then, when do they have Bonnie? Because, you know, I don't know if we have an exact age for Bonnie. She literally has a fruit to manipulate her age and the ages of others. So how old is she possibly? I think we're going to get that answer somewhat soon. But it is curious because, yes, if she was like kind of like a young adult, like I think a lot of us imagined Bonnie is, she should be born by now if she's Ginny's daughter.
Right.
Or at least present if Kuma is like her, you know, father to some degree.
Right.
Like, it seems like she should be in that point. So that is a curious note. I imagine we will be hearing about that soon, hopefully. But more interest to me, I'm very curious who this person is that's coming in. I'm really going to be heartbroken if I've come to like Ginny this much in the next chapter she gets exploded. But, I mean, this is One Piece in a flashback, so I know my heart is going to be shattered at some point.
If it turns out that Bonnie is, because this is 14 years ago, if it turns out that she's only just now like 13, and then you consider how long Kuma has been in the control of the Navy, it's like, oh, so she's like, what, 11? And he's been that way since she was like 4? Oh, dear.
Yeah, Nick, there's a lot of uncomfortable implications that might come about at the idea of this character.
But that would mean that a One Piece character has a tragic backstory, Quinn.
I think we're going to have to wait to see where all those details play out. But this chapter I thought was cool. It's always nice getting to see Dragon, this character who has been present in One Piece since like chapter 100.
We get a lot of pre-tattoo Dragon in this chapter.
Yeah, somewhere in those 8 years he was like, I'm gonna get a tattoo on my face.
Is it gonna like symbolize the revolution? Nah, it just look really cool.
Yeah, it looks radical, is what it means. This is another chapter that makes you feel very empathetically towards Kuma. I do love how very quickly he has radicalized. He has one instance of like, holy shit, this world is, I should say one instance. He was literally kept as a slave until he was like 9 years old. So he has quite a lot of reason. But all I needed was one moment of seeing it again before he's like, all right, fuck this. I'm going to become a fighter for truth and justice. Like, fuck this shit. So
there can be no living a life of peace when there is this much injustice in the world. Yeah.
So very, very sweet. It hurts seeing that he like also takes on the pain of people. It's
like a literal saint. Like, he's crazy. I did really enjoy this chapter. Yes, as heartbreaking as a lot of the implications of it are. I will say, to just kind of wrap things up, and maybe we didn't skip Bonnie's birth, depending on how things go, but we definitely skipped Luffy's, and that is kind of amusing to me.
Yes, if you were waiting for the secret twist that Dragon is actually not his father, then I think you're maybe out of luck at this point.
Yeah, I do like that we have. I mean, it was a bit weird because, of course, you know, like a couple of weeks ago, we had the moment of like, oh, we're gonna see this big historical event. No, because that's not important to Kuma's story. All this other stuff is, and there's all this stuff like there's stuff going on like just over there that we're not seeing because it's like, no, this is about Kuma and by extension about Bonnie. So we will find out more about this next week and find out if Ginny's actually alive at the end of it, I guess.
100% definitely not going to be alive. All right, Nick, that is it for Weekly Manga Recap. So I think the only thing left for us to really do is name our favorite chapter and favorite character of the week. I am going to say, I guess strongest is that this was not a week with like a ton of highs. A lot of stuff was kind of like middling to like just not a thing for me. But I do think Undead Unluck set up something cool, ended with a cool moment, and had something that made me say like, all right, this is dope. I like this. So I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, I'm with you on there's not a lot of big stuff to take note of. I am going to actually double dip and say I think that One Piece is my chapter of the week and Kuma is my character of the week.
Gotcha. I will agree with you. I think on Kuma, I'm gonna say Kuma is my character of the week. Very
right.
very heartbreaking. The audience, by the way, agreed. Undead Unluck chapter of the week. Kuma character of the week. So good stuff. A lot of votes all over the place as well.
It's nice. All right, y'all. That's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. We want to thank you for joining us for the live recording here on twitch.tv/RoloT, which we do starting usually around 7:30 Eastern Time in the evening on Wednesdays. You can also check out our past episodes, weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, iTunes, Spotify, other podcasty type places where you can listen to the audio version. The video version is posted over on youtube.com/weeklymangarecap. The video version sometimes features thumbnails done by Steve Man, whose artwork you can check out by just searching generally anywhere for Steve Man art. And also the opening sequence is done by Malajack Stillitz and Wensleydale Cheddar. Thank you for making that, guys.
Yes.
The Patreon for Weekly Manga Recap is patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap. Do some monetary support for us, which we very much appreciate, and you get access to bonus content. We do a supporter-only bonus episode each month. Where we usually get very silly. You think we're silly here? We do.
Just wait.
But also there. And also make sure that you join the Weekly Manga Recap Discord server. It will be linked wherever this gets posted. You can join in order to participate on stuff related to the show, discuss chapters as the new manga get released, discuss the manga we're planning on doing a full recap of whenever that happens. And also, just like we've got a great community on our Discord server, cool people who are nice.
Yes. Very, very cool people. Our Discord is super awesome. I highly recommend you join it. Every so often, a new person will come in and be like, hey, long time lurker, but just trying to chat. And all of them seem to stick around. Everyone seems to really dig it. So highly recommend it. WMR Discord, super chill community. Good vibes.
And also our Google Doc.
Except the VTuber channel. I don't know what goes on in there. Don't go in there. I cannot recommend
Not vouching for that yet.
Yeah, I'm not vouching for that channel at all.
Ninja X3i maintains the Google Doc that has all sorts of Weekly Manga Recap, like history and statistics and stuff on it, including past series that we have done as recommendations, and also a big old list of stuff that we are considering for future recommendations. Add your own in there if there's a series you would like to hear us talk about. And I think that is going to do it for the show this week. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. What a good time. Nick, you know what they say. At the end of the day, it's nighttime.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that.
Yep.
I think you're lying.
Nope, they do. Everyone who's anyone has said it.
I've never said it. Does that mean I'm no one?
Oh, Nick, you only have a couple minutes after you have this realization to say it. Otherwise, you fade from existence. Oh, he's leaving. He's disappearing. No, he's coming out of frame slowly but surely. His shoulder's still there, but you get the gist. The bit still works.